Chapter 281, The Golden Legion goes to battle and faces the Emperor. Axis, he's finally here, Rogal Dorn exhaled in relief. He knew exactly what Axis's arrival meant. The sheer combat power of Axis alone could change the course of the entire battle. The appearance of that colossal ship was like a massive transfusion to the dying heart of the Imperium. On the field, Loyalist Space Marines held fast, mortal auxiliaries struggled to keep their lines, even Vulcan, pinned by Angron, and Fenris and Chogoris, who were locked with Mortarion and the 11th Primarch, all unconsciously looked up toward that brilliant light. Besides the Morning Star, the Golden King, commanded by Kratos, had entered the solar system's orbit as well. Its planetary-scale weapons were already deployed. Boom! The giant Aquila on the bow of the Morning Star flared to life. A golden column of light, like a spear of divine punishment, punched through sky and ground and swept across a mass of demonic beasts battering the Imperial Palace's main gate. The beasts caught in it didn't so much as scream before being vaporized into nothing by the torrent of pure energy. Where the pillar of light passed, the earth was scorched and gouged into smoking, molten ravines. That was only the beginning. The Morning Star's side armor plates unfolded like petals, revealing dense arrays of gun muzzles shimmering with lethal light. In the next instant, countless blinding white beams rained down on the battlefield, surgically avoiding Loyalist positions and slamming into the densest formations of Chaos Space Marines, into the cores of Daemon Swarms, and into the areas where Tzeentchian sorcerers were opening fleshy warp gates. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous detonations composed a symphony of destruction. Chaos armor, shredded like paper under the beams, demonic creatures were blasted into burning scrap, and sorcerers together with their warp gates were incinerated. The pressure on the Loyalist front eased instantly. My gene seed offspring, warriors of the Golden Legion, attack for the Imperium and defend Holy Terra. Axis stood on the Morning Star's bridge and gave the command. Countless warriors of the Golden Legion, roaring, clad in power armor and bearing chainswords, bolters and energy weapons, streamed into drop pods. For the great Gene Father. Do not fail the Golden Bloodline. Exterminate the enemies of the Imperium. Exterminate these traitors. Nearly every member of Axis's Golden Legion wore a phased teleport bracelet, and with the ships now in low orbit over Holy Terra, teleportation distance was no longer a restriction. They didn't need to use drop pods. They launched phased teleport strikes instead, becoming streaks of blue light that vanished and reappeared directly on the battlefield. In combat teams of 3, they struck the enemies of the Imperium. Warriors shone with golden aura, golden hair, golden eyes, having activated the golden transformation axis bestowed on his gene seed. On the Morning Star's hull, tiny blue points of light winked like stars, and then they were gone. Moments later, on Holy Terra's most fiercely contested front lines, at the cores of Daemon Swarms, and even behind the fleshy warp gates kept open by Tzeentchian sorcerers, buzz, buzz, buzz! Blinding blue pillars of light erupted from the void. When they dissipated, figures in gleaming golden power armor flared into existence, surrounded by fierce golden auras. Their hair stood like burning filaments, and their eyes glowed molten gold. The golden transformation, the pinnacle gift Axis granted his gene seed offspring, erupted without reserve. The Golden King, a planetary-class battleship, followed close behind the Morning Star and joined the assault, its hull bathing the battlefield in sun-like radiance and its bow bearing a majestic golden Aquila. On its bridge, a towering figure stood out, Kratos, War Master of the Imperium's left flank, son of Axis, grandson of the Emperor. He wore golden power armor that seemed lit by divine light and wielded a massive warblade burning with crimson gold flames, an avatar of war. This is our Legion's first battle, the first for the son of Axis. Failure is not an option. I have but one order. Attack, attack, and attack again. Annihilate every enemy of the Emperor. Kratos' voice rang from the Golden King, filled with fighting spirit and iron confidence. For the great Axis, for Lord Kratos, victory. A Legion captain roared, lifting his weapon. Do not fail the Golden Bloodline. Do not fail the son of Axis. Very good. Axis supports the offensive. Let these traitors learn our might, Kratos replied. Lacking phased teleport bracelets, the son of Axis Legion relied on drop pods. Like golden rain, countless pods plunged from orbit. They divided into three-man teams and landed where bloodshed was thickest. These golden reinforcements bolstered the defenders' morale. Imperial Space Marines and mortal soldiers raised weapons and cheered. In their eyes, these golden warriors were the Emperor's emissaries, a golden torrent pouring down. Countless well-equipped, high-spirited Golden Legion Space Marines and elite Son of Axis warriors, like a meteor shower of gold, charged without fear into the fiercest crucibles below. For the Emperor, for humanity, Golden Legion, Son of Axis, charge! A thunderous roar, amplified by the Morningstar's systems, echoed across the field. Kratos was among the first to hit the ground, leading the charge. Trained rigorously by his father for half a year, his combat power had surged. After replacing Ki with psychic power, his destructive potential rivaled a true Super Saiyan in its intensity. "Filthy Daemon, stay away from my uncle," Kratos thundered. He stamped the cracked ground and became a comet of crimson gold flame. His gigantic warblade, Godslayer, screamed as it cleaved through air and space, aiming straight for Angron's back. Angron felt a mortal peril and abandoned his suppression of Vulcan, turning with both axes to intercept. Clang! A terrifying clash of metal reverberated over the battlefield. A violent shockwave erupted, and Angron's massive demonic form was staggered by Kratos' enraged blow. The ground beneath the Warmaster shattered. Angron's body flipped and tumbled, and for a long moment he did not rise. Kratos landed before the gasping Vulcan, warblade leveled at Angron, his golden aura a pillar of flame. "I'll finish you in less than a minute," he snorted. The gulf between them was catastrophic. Angron roared and lunged, only to be met by a golden slash that split him in two. Kratos' Super Saiyan-like psychic power incinerated the demonic flesh outright. Khorne, watching from afar, quickly withdrew his attention in case the youth's wrath consumed it. Axis' bloodline proved fearsome indeed. In 2 blows, a great Chaos Warlord was cut down by Kratos' blade. Atop the Morningstar's bridge, which resembled a throne, Axis did not wear power armor, only a simple but advanced combat suit. Kasha stood at his side, likewise clad in a special suit. "Axis, Sanguinius isn't all right," she said. "I can see that," Axis replied. "He must have awakened his warp essence, like our gene seed offspring. Sanguinius is both archangel and vampire." "It's because you had him eat so many spirit tree fruits," Kasha observed. "If he hadn't taken those, his body might never have reached the point where it could contain that warp essence." "These were necessary steps," Axis said. "Have faith in the Archangel. He can suppress his bloodlust. You go help him. After that, I need to speak with the Emperor alone." Kasha nodded. She used psychic teleportation to send Axis into the Imperial Palace on Holy Terra, then flashed to Sanguinius and Sanguino to help temper Sanguinius's bloodlust with her powers. Inside the Imperial Palace, Axis finally stood before the Emperor. Present in the hall were the Emperor, who had left the Golden Throne, Magnus seated upon it, and Prime Minister Micardo. "Axis, you shouldn't be here," the Emperor said, his expression cool. "I have my reasons," Axis replied. "I will not stand in the way of your return to the Golden Throne, but I must take part in this war." Chapter 282, Axis and the Emperor, Masters of Mankind, March 4th. He currently lacked the power to change everything. Letting Huang Laohan sit upon the Golden Throne was a last resort he would rather avoid, but he would not give up this war. Watching Axis before him, the Lord of Mankind let out a helpless sigh. "Couldn't you, you little bastard, have arrived a few hours later?" he grumbled. "Why did you have to turn up in the middle of the battlefield? I put so much effort in, so much care, all to protect you." Axis snapped. "Since you're already here, I won't argue. The webway is under attack by a demon horde and needs your help," the Lord of Mankind said. All he could do now was find a way to keep Axis from interfering in his duel with Horus. This was the Dark King's bottom line, and the Lord of Mankind felt its pressure keenly. If he defied the Dark King, he risked lapsing into stupor and being replaced by that dark personality. The Dark King had made the threat clear. "I can replace you at any time. You'd better do as I say or else." "Axis, the webway needs you. Enter it, and I will support you with my psychic power," Magnus added. Axis could not be allowed to disrupt the plan of that terrifying being. If he did, all humanity might perish, and even the Lord of Mankind would be forced by necessity to deal with Axis personally for the sake of the race. "I understand. I'll go into the webway battlefield. What are your plans? Axis asked. His own schemes with Khorne and the Laughing God also depended on the webway, so he couldn't refuse. Magnus and the Lord of Mankind visibly relaxed. If Axis had insisted on replacing the Lord of Mankind to face Horus, they would have been forced into desperate measures. Between the fate of humanity and one person, they had to choose. Thankfully, Axis compromised. I will personally lead the Adeptus Custodes and attempt a boarding action to decapitate Horus, the Lord of Mankind said. If Horus is killed, the Chaos Host will be leaderless. Who will you take with you? Axis asked. Rogal Dorn, Sanguinius, and Captain General Valdor, he replied. Sanguinius probably can't go. I ran into him on the way here. He's in a bad state. He's awakened his subdimensional essence, Axis warned, describing how Sanguinius had been twisted into something vampiric. That's grim news. But I have faith in Sanguinius. I believe he can overcome the Blood Angel's red thirst, the Lord of Mankind answered. Then Axis offered, I also brought Kratos with me. You can take Kratos. No, Kratos must remain on the main battlefield. Ferrus Manus accompanying me will suffice, the Lord of Mankind said at first, shaking his head. The war was too perilous. Horus was empowered by the Chaos Gods and purified by Axis's chi. His strength was unprecedented. Only the Lord of Mankind and Axis could be absolutely trusted to defeat him. Anyone else sent in prematurely was likely to die. Axis bristled. I have faith in my son. Kratos has already mastered Super Saiyan 2. The Lord of Mankind hesitated. Rogal Dorn would hold, but any other Gene Seed Primarch brought in might be killed in moments. Only Kratos, Axis's son, stood a real chance of surviving those blows. If the other Primarchs could buy even a little time, Khorne might pause and the Lord of Mankind could reach Horus. Axis wanted to save all the loyalist Primarchs. The Imperium could not rest its future on a single 13th. You have great faith in your son, the Lord of Mankind said slowly. Kratos is my chosen successor. My expectations for him even exceed those for Horus. Don't worry, Kratos will not disappoint. He is my son and your grandson. He carries both your blood and mine, Axis said. The Lord of Mankind laughed, a rare hearty sound. I understand, Axis. Someone, go fetch Kratos immediately. 10 minutes later, Kratos, who had been fighting outside, was brought by the Adeptus Custodes to the Imperial Palace on Holy Terra. Kasha and Sanguino had at last stabilized Sanguinius and returned with the unconscious Archangel. Sanguinius's state was alarming. His golden armor stained red by a strange force, his hair now blood red, and his pure white wings the color of fresh blood. Father, Kasha bowed to the Lord of Mankind. My worst fear has come true, Sanguinius. My most glorious Archangel, the Lord of Mankind sighed. He understood the Blood Angel's curse better than most. After all, he had founded the Legion. Micardo, you and Kasha, use your psychic powers together to help Sanguinius. I believe he can find himself again, the Lord of Mankind ordered. There was little time. The Dark King impatiently urged him to take the Golden Throne, to sit broken and endure eternal torment. Father, Axis and I are here. The tide can still be turned, Kasha promised. Yes, grandfather, we will win, Kratos said. You are right. Humanity will achieve final victory. Kasha, you and Micardo will remain in the Imperial Palace to treat Sanguinius and to monitor the Golden Throne. If Magnus cannot hold longer, one of you will take his place for a while, the Lord of Mankind said. With Kasha back, Micardo no longer had to throw his life away. Kasha's psychic power, boosted by Axis's spirit tree fruit, was roughly half of Magnus's, a far stronger force than Micardo's alone. I understand, Father. What are your plans? Kasha asked. I plan to assault the vengeful spirit with Rogal Dorn, the Lord of Mankind answered. I will personally confront and kill the traitor Horus. Kasha was surprised. Why Rogal Dorn and the Lord of Mankind? Why not Axis and Kratos? If Axis came, he alone could probably end Horus. Axis has a more important battle, the Lord of Mankind explained. The webway is being torn open by an endless tide of demons. If the webway collapses, a flood of demons will pour into Holy Terra, and our world will fall. That fight must be entrusted to the strongest and most trusted person. Kasha nodded. Between her father's strength and her son's, Horus could be met. Axis stepped forward and placed a hand on Kratos' shoulder. Let me see what you can do, he said. If you meet Horus, don't hold back. Hit him hard. Don't worry, Father. I won't disappoint you or dishonor your teachings. I will fight as Super Saiyan 2, Kratos vowed. Kasha gave them both a thumbs up. Preparations completed, the Lord of Mankind, Rogel Dorn, Kratos, and Captain General Valdor led an elite squad into a special boarding craft bound for the vengeful spirit. Watching them depart, Kratos let out a low, sorrowful breath. Nyos, one who had devoted his life to humanity, was going to fight his final battle as a man. Kratos made an inward promise. One day he would lift him free from the golden throne, whole. Magnus, open the entrance to the webway. I will relieve the Adeptus Custodes inside, Axis said, taking a breath as he arrived behind the golden throne. Be careful, Axis. I'll stay in constant psychic contact, Magnus replied, and he opened the webway gate. Axis stepped through. The 1,000 or so remaining Adeptus Custodes, the Sisters of Silence, and the Imperial Fists in the webway were replaced by Axis himself. He transformed directly into a legendary Super Saiyan. A flash of green light, muscles swelling, and his height stretching to 3.5 meters. Axis arrived in the webway, devastatingly powerful. Are you ready to face me, scum? He roared, and then he surged forward into the demonic tide. Chapter 283, Kratos versus Horus. The son of Axis's voice rolled out like distant thunder, cutting through the endless hordes of demons. Every chaos creature within earshot heard it. He was furious. Let me enjoy some slaughter. As the words fell, the son of Axis unleashed a pure, terrifying surge of energy. It wasn't psychic power, yet it was more pristine and commanding than any psychic blast they'd ever seen. A verdant green light, as if holding the very essence of life since the universe began, shot skyward and instantly swept clean hundreds of meters of warp filth and distorted light. Roar, he cried, facing the heavens. The sound carried the power to shatter stars and rend the void. His palms slammed outward, forming solid green shockwaves that rippled in all directions in a perfect sphere. Any demon struck, regardless of type or size, exploded and died the instant the wave hit them, unless they were a great demon. He raised his hand, a ball of green energy gathering in his palm before streaking forward. The orb swelled as it flew, becoming a 100-meter-wide blast that detonated in the heart of the horde. A tangible pressure, like the gravity of a star, rolled outward from the blast. The webway space trembled. The charging demon army froze as if gripped by a giant, invisible hand, then was swallowed by the green light. Flesh collapsed and shattered into dust. With a single move, the son of Axis cleared hundreds of meters of demons, leaving a vacuum of burning green flame and scattered remains. The surviving custodian Caesar, Sisters of Silence, and Imperial Fists stared, dumbfounded. Their battered defensive line, held together through blood and sacrifice, had been utterly transformed by one man's arrival. Custodian Caesar could only sigh. When he had first met the boy 2 centuries ago, he had been 6. In all those years, the boy's power had grown beyond comprehension. For a shock moment, Caesar even felt this warrior might surpass the Emperor. Hurry and leave. You are no longer needed here. This is my war, the son of Axis said, still in legendary Super Saiyan fury, glancing back. He couldn't risk collateral damage in the fighting to come. A stray shockwave could kill the remaining defenders. We understand, son of Axis. We'll leave this to you. Custodian Caesar nodded and led the survivors out of the webway. Once they had withdrawn, the son of Axis became a streak of green fire, charging into the demon mass. Wherever he passed, he left only devastation. Corpses, shattered limbs, pools of blood. Lowly fodder, chaos spawn, even demon engines disintegrated the moment they touched the raging chi that surrounded him. Nothing remained. The berserk Super Saiyan made even demons recoil. While he slaughtered, Magnus focused on repairing the webway with his psychic might. The collision of planet-shattering energy within the webway was being held together by the son of Axis's absolute force. Magnus felt relief. So long as this god of slaughter stood, no number of demons in the webway mattered. The Sisters of Silence and Custodian Caesar had barely drawn breath before the remaining Primarchs rallied them to the main gate of the Imperial Palace on Holy Terra. There another battle waited. The Emperor, Kratos, and Rogel Dorn, aboard a landing craft, had arrived at the Vengeful Spirit. Horus immediately commanded Chaos Warlocks aboard to cast spells and scatter the Emperor and the 2 Primarchs. Even scattered through the ship, the 3 of them were not opponents those cultists could handle. By design, the 3 cut toward the core of the Vengeful Spirit. Kratos, son of Axis, reached the core first. Bridge, Vengeful Spirit Core. The once majestic command center of the Imperium had been transformed into a blasphemous temple of chaos. Outside the viewport, the burning Terra system swirled. Warped energy smeared across the reinforced glass like viscous oil. The floor writhed with screaming carpets of flesh. Rows of soul crystals wept and screamed from the walls, and the air reeked of sulfur and corrupted incense. Kratos walked through that hell with heavy steps. Chaos Space Marines, warlocks, and daemon engines that tried to stop him became burning wreckage beneath his furious strikes. His golden eyes burned cold. His target was one person, War Master Horus Lupercal. From the warp ahead, an unnaturally tall figure emerged. Horus, once the War Master of the Imperium, now fallen to chaos, strode forward in grotesque, massive Terminator armor. The old Luna Wolf's sigil was tangled with blasphemous runes and living flesh. The shoulder pads bore the symbols of the four gods. His face retained the faint, handsome shapes of the man he had been, but his eyes burned with purplish-black fire, filled with madness, ambition, and incessant pain. In one hand, he carried a massive power claw, in the other a world-breaker warhammer wreathed in vile green flame. "Ha ha ha, look who it is! The son of Axis's bastard brat, my dear nephew," Horus rasped, his voice like sandpaper grinding stone. Kratos stopped. Golden chi danced around him, expelling the suffocating chaos aura. He stared at the fallen War Master, at the man he had once admired. Once, Kratos had idolized Horus, pictured him as the perfect father he longed for. That admiration had become faith. Now that faith was ash. "Uncle Horus," Kratos said, voice steady. "I couldn't believe the reports when I heard of your betrayal, of the Emperor. I wondered if it could be true. My most respected War Master, why? Why betray grandfather? Why betray humanity?" Horus sneered. "Why did I do this? Because I saw the Imperium's truth. I saw the hypocrite you've all bowed to. You have no idea how much filth he's spread, my good nephew. I once worshipped him too, until I saw his face. And make no mistake, I have not betrayed humanity. Under my leadership, humanity will rise higher, far beyond the Golden Age." There was a strange affection in Horus for Kratos. Before the Emperor had elevated the boy, before the son of Axis took the Emperor's favor and rose to command the left flank, the two had been close. Horus had treated the boy like a nephew because he knew Kratos shared the Emperor's blood. But favoritism had twisted everything. "My dear nephew, trust me, I fight for humanity, not to make humanity the plaything of a tyrant. Come join me. I have saved a place for you. Be my second in command. Together we'll forge a new, glorious Imperium." Horus tried to tempt him, his tone honeyed and dangerous. If Kratos wavered, the four gods' corruption could take him. "Shut up!" Kratos snarled. "Horus, traitor, your madness and ambition have dragged humanity into the abyss. In the name of the son of Axis, I will end you. You and your damned father are dogs of the false emperor. Both fools. Your head will make a fine offering to the gods." Horus spat, raising his power claw. Words were finished. They would speak with steel. Horus laughed wildly and stepped forward. His power claw descended with a shriek that tore at space itself, simple and brutal, a strike capable of crushing mountains. Golden light flooded Kratos' eyes. He didn't flinch. With a battle cry, the golden chi around him surged to full power. His hair rose like flames, his eyes molten gold, Super Saiyan at full strength. He gripped his power sword. The great blade flamed with gold and slashed upward to meet the claw. Clang. Sparks flew. Metal on metal rang through the chamber. Shockwaves shredded blasphemous decorations and ripped pipes loose. The metal flooring beneath Kratos cracked and gave. The blow might have maimed an ordinary Primarch, but Kratos held. Horus's eyes flickered with surprise. He had not expected such resistance from this boy. No wonder the Emperor favored him. "Good strength, boy," Horus sneered, and with a motion as quick as a viper, his Worldbreaker warhammer slammed toward Kratos' ribs. Kratos reacted instantly, evading the strike and bringing his sword down to parry the hammer. Golden flames tangled with chaos green. "You don't think those two moves will finish me, do you, Uncle Horus?" he spat. "Ha, interesting," Horus said. "Before I fight the Emperor, this duel with you will be a pleasant diversion." "Humph, talk big. I'll make you eat dirt," Kratos shot back and charged. They locked into combat. Horus fought like a war master, broad, devastating, dignified. Each swing of his claw carved energy storms through space. His warhammer struck with cunning brutality, seeking vital points. Despite the weight of the armor, his massive form moved with alarming speed. Kratos was a golden tempest. He pushed Super Saiyan's speed, strength, and instinct to their limits. His power blade became a whirlwind of golden light, slashing, cutting, thrusting, and blocking with lethal precision. Every attack was calculated, every defense perfectly timed. Golden chi clashed and collided with the corrupted filth seeping from Horus's form. Boom after boom, clang after clang, they traded hundreds of blows. For a time, they were evenly matched. Horus's alarm grew. He had expected to crush this descendant of the son of Axis easily. Instead, the boy fought as if he were no mere gene seed Primarch. Kratos' strikes rang with purpose and power beyond what Horus had anticipated. Inside Kratos' chest, seriousness took root. Horus's skill and strength, even without the four gods' power, were at their peak. Both men still held unseen trump cards. Kratos had not used everything, and Horus certainly hadn't either. Kratos' trump card was Super Saiyan 2, a transformation that could multiply his combat power to a level far beyond mortal limits. Horus, meanwhile, had just begun to call on the power of the Chaos Four gods. Both his father and grandfather had warned him. The Chaos gods were bizarre, supreme entities of the warp, beings whose touch could obliterate worlds. In the warp, they were effectively immortal. In the real universe, they were only restrained by cosmic law. Horus had sworn himself to them and been granted the right to wield that power. If he unleashed it fully, his strength would climb to an almost inconceivable height. "Kratos, you think you can stand against me?" Horus snarled, fury erupting in his chest. The purplish-black flames in his eyes flared. He would not be bested by the son of Axis. He had already been humiliated before. He could not allow it to happen again. "I will not lose to Axis's son. Witness the true power the Chaos gods have given me." Before he finished, an indescribable pressure exploded outward from him. The vengeful spirit trembled under it. Horus's form blurred and swelled. Behind him, four colossal, distorted phantoms flickered into being. A roaring avatar of Khorne, stitched from skulls and blood-red flame. An ever-changing figure of Tzeentch, made of twisting runes and flickering eyes. A bloated, oozing Nurgle shape, stinking of rot and pestilence. And a lithe, agonizing Slaanesh apparition, all temptation and torment. With the four gods' power pouring into him, Horus grew one size larger, utterly malignant. Warp energy rippled from him, warping even the time of Holy Terra itself. "Die, son of Axis." The word was not human. Horus's movements became superhuman. Horus's claw, drenched in the power to rip reality, hammered toward Kratos' chest with blinding speed. The pressure alone made Kratos gasp. The weapon's destructive aura threatened to suffocate him. Kratos' pupils shrank. He felt the cold certainty of death. He could neither block nor dodge in time. Then, from deep inside him, a golden light burst from his eyes, roaring like some soul-shattering cry. A violent, brilliant golden aura detonated around him, brighter, more electric, more lethal than before. Countless golden filaments of lightning danced over his body. His hair rose, hairline fringe of light snapping like tiny arcs. He had reached Super Saiyan 2, but it was not Axis's Super Saiyan 2. Axis's form was fueled by chi. Kratos' version was sustained by immense psychic power, fused with the Emperor's own essence. Golden psychic flames and Saiyan ferocity coalesced into something both of them recognized, the blood of Axis and the will of the Emperor made manifest. "Horus!" Kratos' shout rolled like thunder. The two powers met. Horus wielded Horus's claw in one hand and the Worldbreaker Warhammer in the other. The clash that followed was beyond any mortal fight. Golden lightning smashed into purplish-black chaos energy, explosions of force shredded metal and vaporized plating. The vengeful spirit groaned under the siege, its hull buckling, small deck sections folding like paper. Even the Emperor and Dorn, racing toward the duel, felt the tremor of their meeting. The Emperor's eyes flickered with a grim pleasure. His bloodline, Axis's son, fought with a potency that reassured him about humanity's future. He quickened his steps, but subtle warp-forged spatial forces rose up to slow him. The Chaos gods did not want him arriving too soon. The Emperor sneered and unleashed a wave of psychic force of his own. The created barrier shattered around him, and he advanced. Kratos and Horus clashed on the edge of annihilation. With the four gods' blessing, Horus's attacks reached uncanny extremes. The phantoms behind him screamed, whispered, and bolstered him. Each swing of Horus's claw seemed to tear a little more of reality. The Worldbreaker Warhammer carried a corruption of gravity and a sickly green flame that crushed and dissolved anything it struck. The warp bled into the real space around them, fouling the air and shuddering the ship. The Chaos Gods watched, intrigued. "This is remarkable," Tzeentch murmured in the background of the warp. "The boy fights like a second emperor, yet his soul remains that of a mortal." "Slaanesh remembered Axis doing something similar," one voice replied. "When Axis used his transformation against me, his glow was green. This boy's is different." "Khorne would have taken him for himself," another said flatly, "if not for those pacts with Axis." Slaanesh: "I presumed Axis's power could not be passed down, that his origin was unique. Yet the boy substituted psychic power for chi and copied the form. Fascinating. Let us give Horus more," Tzeentch proposed. "Push the boy to his limits." They poured additional divine force into Horus. Under that blessing, Horus surged, and the fight tipped. The golden aura around Kratos sizzled under the corrupting warp fires, consumed at its edges by chaos, but the Emperor's core flame and Kratos' Saiyan fighting spirit held fast. Golden lightning burned through the fouling energy, purifying in flashes. The two energies tore at the vengeful spirit until a concussive ring of destruction punched through the hull. The ship's structure could not take it. Glass and metal shattered. A yawning hole, hundreds of meters across, ripped open and showed the burning Terra system and the writhing warp backdrop beyond. Twisted shards and the carcasses of chaos constructs were hurled into the cold void. The clash had broken the barrier of the real universe itself. Kratos and Horus spun and slammed like two comets colliding in the rupture, their bodies a blur of light and shadow against the endless black. Horus became almost feral. The phantoms behind him howled. His swings were wild and monstrous. Space itself seemed to crumple where the claw passed. The Worldbreaker slammed in arcs that bent gravity and spewed filth. "You cannot win," Horus raved. "The Chaos Gods empower me. Their power never wanes. Your end is inevitable." Kratos, trembling but unbowed, backed away a hair and spat. "The outcome's not decided yet. I've more than what you see. I'll show you what my father and I taught me." He withdrew a small bottle from his belt, uncorked it, and drank. Life surged through him, raw vitality knitting torn tissue, filling lungs and limbs. He healed in seconds, his reserves restored. "Watch carefully," Kratos said, voice like a blade. "This is my strongest move." He clasped his hands and poured his psychic power outward, shaping it. A pale silver-white moon appeared above them, not a real moon, but a psychic construct, perfect and uncanny. Horus sneered. "Your trump card is a fake moon?" Kratos merely smiled with cold concentration. The constructed moon pulsed, and with it came the sound. Thump, thump, thump. A heartbeat echoed through the rupture, heavy and measured, like a drumbeat the universe itself could feel. The hour was not yet decided. Chapter 285, Holy Golden Giant Ape versus Horus of the Four Gods. The moment Kratos' eyes fixed on the psychic moon, his body convulsed and underwent a terrifying transformation. His bone-breaking roar drowned out the creaking laments of the ruined battleship. The golden lightning that had clung to him flared and was swept away by a torrent of primal, savage energy. Black fur tore through his skin and sprouted wildly. His muscles swelled like mountain ranges, ripping apart his power armor. Roar! A furious howl rolled across the wreckage, and a black great ape, roughly 20 meters tall, reared up before Horus. The change, however, was not finished. A golden power rose from within the ape's bulk. Its black fur blazed and turned to gold. With a roar that cracked the void, the golden great ape stood upon the shattered hull, its whole body wreathed in sacred golden flame, its eyes burning with the Emperor's psychic light. Horus surged forward without hesitation, Horus's claw slashing space itself to strike a killing blow. The massive claw crashed into the ape's chest with bone-jarring force. Clang! This was no mere clash of flesh. It sounded like two stellar cores colliding. Horus's chaos-infused weapon, an instrument of destruction that could crush worlds, only left a few minor scars on the golden great ape's thick golden pelt. The ape's fur successfully resisted Horus's disintegrating field and chaos energy. Roar! The golden great ape bellowed, pounding its broad chest with both fists. That roar was no longer simply a beast's cry. It carried Kratos' indomitable will, the fury of the Saiyan bloodline, and the resonant majesty of the Emperor's psychic power. Visible golden sound waves, like a titanic hammer, like war drums, rolled outward from him. The psychic force slammed into Horus, causing the chaos shield around him to shudder. The War Master was thrown backward, smashing through layers of twisted metal and debris. In the warp, 4 shadowy silhouettes of the Chaos Gods whispered in alarm. A great ape? Axis used this against Slaanesh and Khorne in the warp, the countless-eyed form of Tzeentch murmured, eyes flickering as it tried to analyze the anomalous energy. Axis's ape had been a green-gold flame. Kratos's was different, pure golden fury fused with the Emperor's divine light. Pure gold radiated from the beast. Power, pure power is surging. The skull throne of Khorne trembled with hungry excitement. Horus, tear it apart, sacrifice its skull to me. Slaanesh purred in morbid delight. Nurgle's oozing presence crooned about decay and infection. Only Tzeentch watched Kratos, son of Axis, with sharp, calculating interest. But for the moment, the Chaos Gods did not seek to kill the ape outright. They wanted Horus to offer it to them. Propelled by their will, Horus rose from the ruins. 4 solid projections of the Chaos Gods coalesced behind him like a cloak of warp-made shadow. He hefted the World-Breaker Warhammer. Foul green flames mixed with Khorne's blood-red lightning, Tzeentch's cunning runes, and Slaanesh's sickly halo condensed into a chaos globe whose force could crush a small world. Beast, turn to cosmic dust for me. Horus roared, hurling the destructive sphere straight at the golden great ape's head. In the ape's eyes flashed a savage, precise combat intelligence, Kratos' mind at work. He didn't meet the planetary blow head-on. Despite his titanic size, the ape moved with impossible speed. He sidestepped, twisted his massive torso, and the chaos sphere screamed past his shoulder, striking a floating section of wreckage instead. The explosion vaporized kilometers of metal, leaving a maelstrom of warp energy in its wake. A human smile tugged at the corner of the golden great ape's mouth. If you think I lose myself without awareness in this form, you're wrong. This state had been trained for. Axis had taught him how to forge a moon with chi, and Kratos had learned to produce a false moon with psychic power to trigger the transformation. Under his father's supervision, he had practiced becoming the black-furred great ape, and, by mastering psychic control, had regained his sanity repeatedly. Afterwards, Axis guided him to awaken Super Saiyan power while in the great ape form, and thus attain the golden great ape. To ordinary eyes, the power he now wielded was unimaginable. The Chaos Gods in the warp didn't know the differences, though. They assumed Axis' son could reach the same Super Saiyan 4 state his father once had, and they feared it. As the chaos energy howled, the golden great ape's giant claw, crackling with golden lightning that tore reality and the purifying holy flames of the Emperor's psychic power, descended toward Horus's head like a world sunderer. Even before impact, the vacuum shockwave from the compressed pure power made the chaos energies around Horus boil. Never, you will never stop me. You will never defeat me, Horus screamed. Horus's claw and the Worldbreaker crossed to block. The 4 shadow forms of the Chaos Gods roared and poured their might into him. Bang! A sphere of light brighter than a star detonated at the point of contact. Hull plates disintegrated and vaporized as if crushed by some god's fist. The rifts in reality widened, and the warp rushed in like a waterfall, drowning the battlefield in a grotesque purgatory. The core of Horus's flagship had been extensively damaged. Even the hull writhed under the stress. Yet the Chaos Gods had twisted the surrounding space into a suitable arena. However much tore apart, the battlefield itself would not be utterly destroyed. The 2 combatants locked in furious struggle. The metal under Horus's feet cracked away in splinters. Purple-black chaos oil boiled around his limbs, holding back the golden talon. Horus felt, with visceral disgust, that the claw's power was not only physical, it carried a sacred purifying force that seared his soul, the Emperor's light, working to cancel the chaos blessings within him. Damn it! How could Axis' son have such power? The great ape's other titanic arms screamed through space in a sweeping blow that could have shattered satellites. Horus, fueled by the Chaos Gods, poured everything he had into holding it back. His arms trembled under the pressure. By force, he opened a sliver of a gap. At the same time, he twisted his body and slammed the Worldbreaker into the sweeping arm's wrist. Thud. Sizzle. The golden great ape leapt aside and avoided the follow-through. He counterattacked with such ferocity that Horus was driven back again and again. Horus thought of activating his final battle mode, but his reserves were meant for his father. He could not squander them on this boy. Worse, his body might not survive the strain. Then Horus remembered something Kratos had once told him in trust. If Kratos ever lost control and transformed into a great ape, attack its tail. Desperate, Horus slithered beneath the ape's bulk, launched up, and Horus's claw sheared through Kratos' tail. The golden great ape howled in agony. His body shrank rapidly. Kratos reverted to human form, collapsing to his knees, gasping. Damn it! Horus had found the weakness. Now you have no tricks left, Horus sneered, kicking Kratos onto his back and raising the Worldbreaker to finish him. At that instant, a golden greatsword slammed down to block the hammer. Clang! The impact drove Horus back. Standing between the Warmaster and Kratos was a towering figure 5 meters tall in ornate golden power armor, a blade still planted against the warhammer. Are you all right? The figure asked. I'm fine, grandfather, Kratos panted. I've disappointed you. I failed to defeat Horus. Chapter 286, Furious Father. Why did you kill my son? The human emperor had come. He had broken the Chaos Four Gods' blockade of the warp and ripped into the battlefield, arriving just in time to save Kratos. The sight of him, blazing and inexorable, shifted the tide. You've done more than enough, the emperor said as he steadied Kratos. You held Horus before I arrived and bled him dry. That is more than I could have asked. Kratos, a naturally born mortal grandson rather than a gene seed Primarch, had always occupied a special place in the emperor's heart, perhaps even more so than Axis. The emperor's psychic power had been fully spent to pierce the spatial barrier the Chaos Gods had woven. He reached out, burst through, and pulled his grandson away from the brink. Kratos, this is no longer your fight. Step back. The rest is between Horus and me. He patted Kratos on the shoulder. No, grandfather, I can still fight. I can still stop him, Kratos protested, trying to rise, but the emperor held him down with one steady hand. Obey me, Kratos. Move aside. This is a battle you cannot take part in. Not even your father could interfere. The emperor spoke with the gravity of command. Kratos opened his mouth, hesitated, then bowed his head and fell back to the edge of the battlefield, relinquishing the center stage to human Emperor Nyos. Go, grandfather. Kill this traitor. Don't spare him. He's not Horus anymore, Kratos cried. Years of living under the Emperor's expectations had taught him to read the old man's heart. Most of the Emperor's love belonged to humanity, but the rest was parceled among family. Kratos, his mother, his grandmother, and a great portion had once been given to Horus. The Emperor fixed his gaze on Horus. Why did you kill my son? He demanded. Horus faltered. When did I kill your son? He thought. Are you senile? Hand over the title of Lord of Mankind and let me lead humanity to its tomorrow, Horus sneered. Why did you kill my son? The Emperor repeated, voice like a blade. In the Emperor's eyes, Horus was already dead. His soul's light had dimmed. What remained was a puppet fashioned by the Chaos Four Gods and wearing Horus's memories. Today, the Emperor did not face Warmaster Horus so much as the Chaos Gods themselves. For the first time, Horus realized the Emperor was not looking only at him. His gaze pushed past Horus to the 4 shadowy silhouettes that flitted behind him. Rage, ugly and nameless, surged up from the depths of Horus's heart. What do you mean my son is dead? Does he mean me? I'm not dead. I'm not dead. I'm using them. The Chaos Gods had poured into Horus the chi energy they had stolen from Axis. That energy bolstered his body, stretching his physiology to impossible limits. The gods fed him with their divine might until his frame swelled to over 5 meters tall, matching, in size, the Emperor himself. The Emperor sank his flaming greatsword into the ground. His psychic power flared and magnified, forming a colossal golden projection in the warp that stared back at the Chaos Gods. Horus, roaring back, tried to reclaim the stage. Look at me, father. Look at me. I am your opponent. The Chaos Gods answered with grotesque laughter, a sound without words that mocked everyone, Horus, the Emperor, and perhaps even themselves. The Emperor's psychic image and Horus's warped soul projection tore into the warp and met. This was not the skirmish Kratos had played out with Horus earlier. This was final. Horus, now nearly completely unleashed by the Four Gods' power, threw himself at the Emperor with everything he had. He bore the massive Horus's claw and the War Master's power maul. The Emperor donned his true one armor and gripped the golden blade of the Lord of Mankind. Their clash shook the fabric between realities. Inside the warp, the Emperor became a golden colossus of pure psychic light, a star of sanity pushing back the chaos. He fixed his gaze on the four shadowed gods beyond Horus and let a single terrible question roll through the immaterial seas. You, why did you kill my son? It was rage and mourning braided together. It was the eruption of a father's love that had been suppressed too long. In the real universe, the Emperor fought Horus with his greatsword while his spirit dove into the warp to confront the gods. He unleashed every scrap of strength he possessed. The power of a man amplified by 10 years of Axis's chi and the spirit tree fruits he had consumed. Even the Chaos Gods were forced to answer at full force. They could not ignore the Emperor's fury now. You are their puppet, Horus. The Emperor's voice spoke directly into the storm of Horus's mind, cold and razor-sharp, cutting through the whispers of the gods. The power you covet is poisoned bait. You have destroyed everything you swore to protect. What you killed was my son. It was less an indictment than a desperate plea, an attempt to reach the last sliver of the Horus he had raised. The Emperor's voice carried pain beneath it, a final call to the bright soul he once knew. Horus answered with madness. No! His assault turned even more ferocious, a cyclone of rage and blasphemous power. He hurled himself at the Emperor. Kratos watched in disbelief. The Emperor, his grandfather, seemed to be holding back. In several clashes, the old man had actually been pushed into desperate retreats. Horus, seizing the opportunity, gouged deep claw marks into the Emperor's true one armor. 20 years of affection, the return of his first son, all the Emperor's hopes and expectations had hardened something in him that kept him from delivering a clean killing blow. Unlike the other gene seed Primarchs, the Emperor had loved Horus as a son. The others had always been tools, and now he was torn. The battle raged in two realms. In the material universe, the Emperor clashed with Horus blade to claw. In the warp, his mind fought the four gods. Blow after blow was exchanged, and slowly the Emperor was bled back, driven toward disadvantage. I will prove it to you, Father. I will do better than you. Horus's body radiated corrupt warp power, his face twisted into something inhuman. Kratos tried to rise to help, but pain pinned him down. He felt weak. He carried only one bottle of spirit tree fruit juice. The Emperor's reluctance to strike Horus decisively had given the traitor the opening he needed. Horus kicked the Emperor hard, sending him skidding against the hull of a ship. The old man crashed onto the metal and stayed down, wounded. Then, as if from nowhere, an ordinary Imperial soldier in a plain beige uniform and basic carapace armor stepped onto the blasted ground. He carried a standard lasgun. He had appeared at an unknown moment, and he charged at Horus with nothing but a bayonet fixed to his rifle. The Emperor looked up in recognition and disbelief. "Old person, get away! You can't stand against him! Run!" he cried as he struggled to rise. Old Person had been born in Anatolia 15,000 years ago and had taken many names. After a tragedy in the Stone Age, he had discovered a curse or a gift of immortality. He had fought alongside the Emperor through ages. The Trojan battlefield, the campaigns of Alexander, the Roman legions in Britannia, walked with Machiavelli, fought at Verdun under the name Orion Pearson. In the Great Crusade, he had enlisted in the Imperial Guard under the name Pius and chose to live as a mortal to atone. Immortal though he was, all possessed no great psychic might. His physical form was only marginally superior to a regular human. Yet the old veteran planted his feet before War Master Horus and charged with a bayonet and a lasgun. Horus barely altered his expression into amusement. The bayonet pinged off his defense like a coin against a plate. Warp energies, raw and corrosive, tore the soldier apart. Old Person's body dissolved under the onslaught, flesh and spirit crumbling into the immaterial rot of the warp. In his last breath, he turned his face to the Emperor and offered a faint, wordless smile. It was the final, silent encouragement of an old comrade. If you cannot bring yourself to kill your son, then let me give you the courage to do it. Fight Neos! Witnessing that sacrifice, something in the Emperor broke. The sorrow and pleading darkened into a cold, starless void. The paternal grief gave way to unmoving, inexorable purpose. The Emperor raised his greatsword. "Then, so be it," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Khorne and the other gods signaled to one another. The hour had come. The Emperor stopped moderating himself. The Chaos gods stopped diverting their attention. Nothing mattered now except this battle. In the webway, Axis had driven out the invading daemons and reached its edge. He stepped out without hesitation and plunged into the warp. Magnus had warned him again and again not to go further, but Axis ignored him. He tore through the radius of Magnus's protection like a trapped animal freed, and then unleashed himself like a legendary warrior. His ki flared in green, destructive arcs that shredded daemons to nothing. Then, with a sweep of spiritual power, he erected a barrier at the webway's mouth so that no daemon could enter for the time being. In the warp Axis saw the Chaos gods and the 5 towering forms the Emperor had become. A fat green brute, a red demon with a colossal axe, a purple hermaphroditic horror, and a blue feathered birdman. Beside Axis, at some instant no mortal could place, the laughing god of the Eldari had appeared, an unsettling figure the Eldari called the Clown God. "This is a sight to live for," the Clown God gurgled, his voice full of manic glee. "Let us go to Nurgle's garden. It is time." "There's no time to waste," Axis said. Rescue the life goddess had been his aim all along. This moment had come. The Clown God giggled and tossed strange sigils into the warp, weaving a path through the dense, reeking fog. Together they arrived inside a corrupted, putrid green garden, a place of rot and pestilence where decay was worshipped. There, in the center of all that filth, sat an enormous dried pot, an altar of plague. Nurglings and greater demons of Nurgle crawled and swarmed everywhere. "We have arrived, friend," the Clown God chittered. Axis and the Clown God, Chao Gaoqi, arrived uninvited in Father Nurgle's rotten paradise. Beneath their boots, the ground was a sticky, putrid humus. The air hung thick with a sickly, sweet rot and drifting spores, the whole place reeking of corpses. Giant pustules rose like hills, oozing foul, multicolored ichor. Countless clumsy, nauseating Nurglings rolled and frolicked in the mud, and the distant hum of plague flies set teeth on edge. Axis frowned. The stench was unbearable. If he had to sum it up in one word, this place was utterly inhospitable to any intelligent life. The plague energy here was dangerous. Not even a space marine would step in without risk. The aura could corrupt and turn them into Nurgle worshippers. Axis's body was wreathed in a golden-green glow as he raised the protective shield of a legendary Super Saiyan, and he layered psychic power around that shield to guard against the corrupting influence and allow him to move. Even so, he didn't dare to breathe unguarded. Among the Chaos God's domains, Nurgle's was the deadliest. Some of the plagues Father Nurgle brewed were cunning enough to infect a legendary Super Saiyan. Saiyan physiology wasn't especially resistant to such things, but thanks to the Emperor's modifications, Axis's immunity far exceeded that of an ordinary Saiyan. He was not only a legendary Super Saiyan, but in many ways, a gene seed Primarch among his people. Still, he refused to underestimate Nurgle's contagions. "Ha! Welcome to Father Nurgle's backyard, friend. Isn't it vibrant?" Chao Gaoqi pinched his nose and grimaced. Once, he would never have dreamed of coming here. The domains of the warp gods, the pleasure palace, Nurgle's garden, the brass throne. Any step inside invited detection, capture by deranged chaos beings, and merciless torment. Who would have imagined Axis and Khorne could hatch a scheme bold enough to ensnare Nurgle? Vibrant, yes. Everything here has life, but I disagree with the way they exist, Axis said. Plan A, elegant stealth rescue. Plan B, spectacular ruckus in Nurgle's garden. Which do you pick? Under normal circumstances, I'd pick Plan B, Axis replied, but now we go with Plan A. They had to be stealthy. Make enough noise here and they'd attract Father Nurgle. It had taken the Chaos 4 gods plus Horus, 5 against 1, to force Huang Laohan onto the Golden Throne. If even one of those 5 were absent, Huang Laohan might have turned the tide. All right, I'll listen. We go secret. First, let Uncle Clown cloak us. Chao Gaoqi produced 2 playing cards, scattered them into the air, and a wash of multicolored light fell over them. Their auras blended with the surrounding Nurglings and demons. To lesser entities, they would now look like locals. Done. To the slimy locals were no different. Don't interact with the Nurglings or demons. Just find our target. As the universe's most accomplished god at concealment and self-preservation, Qiao Gaoqi had tricks other gods might not. They might not fool the Warp Lords themselves, but they were enough to deceive their minions and even many greater demons. Good call bringing you. So how do we find Life Goddess Aisha? This place is enormous. Axis gestured at the boundless decay. Though called a garden, the area could encompass several star systems at Nurgle's whim. Searching it by foot would be hopeless. You hit the nail on the head, friend. I'll emit my divine power. Aisha and I are both Eldar deities. When she senses my power, she'll resonate with her own. Once I pick up that echo, I can lead us to her. Won't that attract other greater demons? Or Father Nurgle himself? We can't be exposed. Don't worry, Aisha and I share an Eldar bond. My signal will be subtle. The laughing god sat cross-legged and carefully sent out a faint Eldar divine signature. It spread like barely perceptible ripples, too weak to draw ordinary Nurglings' notice. After some time, Qiao Gaoqi's signal met a faint reply, like a droplet causing a tiny ripple. The laughing god detected it instantly. Found her. Follow me. They walked through the warp, where time had no meaning. When they stopped, it was in a surprisingly quiet place. No noisy demons disturbed the area. Instead, a thick wall of corrupted vines writhed with moss and slime. At its center sat a heavy sealed door of withered bone, rusted metal, and congealed pus. Blasphemous runes crawled across it, and a powerful binding aura isolated whatever lay beyond. Through cracks in the door, a faint, utterly out-of-place emerald light glimmered. Qiao Gaoqi hurried to the door, pressed his ear to it, and tapped a light, precise rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. A soft response came back from inside, matching the rhythm perfectly. Tap, tap, tap. The exchange carried an unmistakable note of excitement and hope. This is it. Aisha's inside. Now we need to open this seal, Qiao Gaoqi said. You want me to try to force it open? Axis asked. No, that's exactly where the green fatty keeps his favorites. If it's forced, the consequences will be bad. Lockpicking is a clown's basic skill. Qiao Gaoqi flashed a grin, produced a set of tools, and set to work. On the surface, it looks like picking a lock. But gods work on another level. We communicate subtly with the seal, find its core, and coax it open. Delicate work. After a tense stretch of time, he found the right spot, gave a twist, and the lock clicked. The massive door gave a rumble and swung open. A surge of pure, vibrant life rushed out like a warm tide, washing away the fetid air. The corrupt vines shrank back, and the slime on them seemed to slacken where the life essence flowed. Blue sky, white clouds, towering ancient trees that reached to the heavens, rolling green meadows carpeted with soft grass and exotic flowers, crystal brooks that babbled and waterfalls flashing prismatic light. Small furry creatures played freely among the trunks and blossoms. This place was no prison. It was a mythic wonderland, an impossible paradise pressed up against Nurgle's filth. Axis felt the contrast like a blade of light dividing heaven and hell. The life aura was vast and warm, utterly unlike the rot outside. Qiao Gaoqi, is that really you? Have you come to save me? A voice, ethereal and melodious, drifted through the doorway. Axis looked up and saw the source. Not some abstract godly manifestation, but a woman, an elven figure from legend, luminous and impossibly graceful. Life goddess Aisha stood there, her presence the very image of life and hope. A figure emerged from that luminous wonderland. She wore an emerald gown that looked as if it had been woven from morning dew and moonlight. Silver hair cascaded past her shoulders, revealing the delicate points of her ears. Her face was impossibly refined, otherworldly, compassionate, and touched with the exhaustion of a long imprisonment, yet it only heightened her breathtaking beauty. A wreath of ever-blooming flowers and green vines sat like a natural crown upon her head, and her eyes, clear as emeralds, shone with tears of overwhelming joy as they fixed on the clown god and Axis standing outside the door. Hey! Isn't she beautiful? The life goddess easily ranks among the top 3 most beautiful beings in the entire universe, the laughing god crowed, triumphant. In looks alone, the Eldari goddess was devastating. Her beauty transcended mortal comprehension. Even the clown god admired Axis for keeping his composure in front of her. She is indeed very beautiful, Axis admitted. But I'm curious, who's first? Oh, first place is that perverse androgynous one. He's the most handsome man in the universe, and she's the most beautiful woman, the laughing god said with a shrug. Axis snorted. Is that so? I've seen Slaanesh. To me, he's just a complete pervert. I don't see any beauty in him. This life goddess is far more beautiful than Slaanesh. The laughing god's grin froze. The clown god's mouth fell open in shocked disbelief. A mortal, here in front of him, had just declared that Slaanesh was not beautiful. It was unthinkable. Slaanesh embodied cosmic beauty, however warped, and mortals were supposed to be helpless before that allure. Unless, the clown god's eyes narrowed as realization struck. Axis's chi energy had an unusually strong resistance to the warp, especially to its seductive aspects. From Axis's perspective, Slaanesh was nothing more than a depraved pervert. If that was true, it meant Axis could be immune to Slaanesh's enchantments. The idea of a mortal shrugging off the allure of one of the universe's most potent gods was deliciously ironic. This is perfect, Aisha cried as she ran to stand before them. She had never imagined the hand that would open her prison's door would not belong to that green, rot-stinking glutton who kept forcing that foul, curdled soup on her. Could the laughing god actually save her? The life goddess still doubted it. She knew the clown god well enough to call him a coward. She knew exactly what he was capable of. And who was this mortal beside him? His aura of life was overwhelming. When Axis first saw the Eldari life goddess, he could only think of one word: stunning. Beautiful seemed made for her. Even a battle-hardened warrior like him felt the pull of her appearance. Oh, my dear Aisha, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, but don't worry, the laughing god has come to save you, the laughing god said. Thank you, Aisha replied, but suspicion laced her voice. Are you sure you came to rescue me alone? Not with your friend? Of course, the laughing god said. This was our plan together. Allow me to introduce you. This is Mr. Axis. He's a human. You know, humans. The Eldari used to call them wild monkeys, but their evolution has been rapid. Hello, Mr. Axis. I suspected the laughing god couldn't do this alone. You must have done the hard work, Aisha said. You're mistaken, Ms. Aisha, Axis deflected. Finding you and opening the seal were the laughing god's achievements. I appreciate his help, Aisha said. So what now? How do you plan to get me out of here? They couldn't exactly tell her. We're freeing you from one chaos god's territory so we can take you into another. The laughing god smiled thinly. How did you avoid Nurgle? Isha asked. He never leaves the life garden and comes almost every day with that disgusting foul-smelling soup. How to put it? Axis began. There's an unprecedented event unfolding across the universe right now. The attention of the four chaos gods is drawn to it. The laughing god and I took advantage of that distraction to slip in and find you. And after I leave? Aisha asked. She hesitated to trust them. Nurgle's daily indignities were unpleasant but survivable. Slaanesh, however, would utterly ruin her. She would not step outside into a world where Slaanesh could claim her without a guaranteed safe destination. I will protect you, Miss Aisha, Axis said, but I'll need something from you. You? Aisha's gaze sharpened. A mortal promising a goddess protection was an outrageous notion, as absurd as a peasant promising to keep a princess safe from a conquering king. Aisha, don't underestimate Axis, the laughing god interjected. He's utterly formidable. He even fought Slaanesh without Slaanesh gaining the upper hand. That may be, but you're a subspace god and cannot enter the real universe, Aisha said. Unless you never return to the real universe, even if you're strong enough to stand against Slaanesh, you couldn't keep me safe. You would be facing two chaos gods at once. I can't do it alone, Axis agreed, but another god can. I'll be blunt. We need your help to plant a miraculous god tree that will yield a powerful god fruit. My ally is Khorne, one of the four chaos gods. Aisha's face went pale. Khorne? He's interested in me? Were you sent by him to capture me? Don't worry, Axis said quickly. Unlike Nurgle and Slaanesh, Khorne doesn't want you for himself. He wants the tree planted on his domain. If you agree to help plant it, you'll be free to move within certain bounds. Khorne won't imprison you. You should know the blood god. He has no interest in a life goddess like you. And what do you get? Aisha asked, still wary. A mortal able to strike a bargain with a chaos must be powerful. What did he expect in return for freeing her? Khorne and I share the same goal. We need you to help plant the tree. I will provide the tree. Khorne will provide the planting site, but it must be planted on a god's territory. That's where your power comes in. I will also provide a defective god fruit to fashion a vessel for you, a body you can inhabit in the real universe so you won't have to fear Slaanesh's reach, Axis explained. Oh, Aisha said slowly. If you can give me a body that can contain me in the real universe, then this could work. I can help plant the god tree. The life garden is perfect. It's connected to me, and wherever I go, the garden can follow. But I don't want to stay in the warp anymore. If you truly can provide me with a body, then move my life garden into the webway. I will create a life planet there to reside on. Fine, Axis said. No problem. As long as you agree to plant the god tree, Khorne can even lend some of his power to help it take root. Deal, Aisha replied. Chapter 289. Escape from the Garden of Nurgle, make a big move, and show your father some color. Aisha's eyes flickered through a tangle of emotions before settling into a look of quiet determination. She accepted Axis's bargain without hesitation. Compared to being smothered by Nurgle's love or falling into Slaanesh's perverse grasp, Khorne's cold, goal-oriented deal felt tolerable. At least Khorne was reliable in his way. If he said he wasn't interested, he truly wouldn't interfere, so long as you met his terms. More important to Aisha was her bottom line. She would not remain in the domains of the Chaos Gods. If it was only a matter of planting life, her life domain could handle it. She only needed Khorne to grant a little divine power from the Chaos Pantheon. A wise choice, Miss Aisha. Believe me, we rescued you only to have you plant trees. We ask for nothing else, Axis said. In the warp, options are rarely good ones, only the least terrible. In truth, Father Nurgle had been, in his own grotesque way, indulgent to the life goddess. He had even permitted her to form her own life domain inside Nurgle's garden to live in. All he demanded in return was that she drink his plague broth each day. If Nurgle's love weren't so perverse and warped, a goddess devoted to life might have been softened, perhaps even seduced by it. But the Chaos Gods do not change their natures. Khorne will always hunger for blood and skulls. Tzeentch will always scheme and study sorcery. Slaanesh will always crave exquisite sensations. Nurgle will never abandon plague and decay. A goddess who loves life could never truly accept Nurgle. She might tolerate Khorne. Women can stomach a man who is warlike, but they cannot stomach filth. Then we'd better move now. The laughing god, Xiao Gaoqi, clapped his hands, his voice light and expectant despite a trace of tension. Nurgle is busy with that big event, but he could return on a whim. Agreed. First, let me retrieve my life domain. Aisha inhaled as if to force the last taint of rot from her lungs and pressed her palms down into the garden earth. Immediately, the life garden, this patch of green that had somehow resisted Nurgle's corruption, began to glow with a soft emerald light. The light spread outward from her feet like a tide. The light of life flowed steadily, drawing the garden in on itself. The boundary of the garden collapsed inward, becoming ethereal as if sucked into an invisible pocket, and condensed behind Aisha until it was no larger than a fist. In a single flash, the once verdant paradise vanished. The surrounding landscape snapped back to decay and rot. Axis felt the pulse of the ground shift beneath him. The life goddess's power was formidable. Deities could wield far more in the warp than in the material universe. The warp was the true home of gods. Axis had learned more of its nature during his 2 incarnations there. The life garden is the core of my realm, tied to my soul. I have retrieved it, Aisha said. We need a safe route out of Nurgle's domain and to the webway entrance. Xiao Gaoqi, you lead. Leave it to me. Follow me. The clown god dropped his usual playful mask, and the 3 set off. Axis kept his guard high. A golden-green Super Saiyan barrier flared up, enveloping the laughing god and the life goddess. Tsk, Saiyan Chi, convenient and overbearing, Xiao Gaoqi muttered, picking up his pace. Axis's chi had proved invaluable. Without it, none of them would have dared enter Nurgle's garden. This protective shield is remarkable. I can sense a strong life force in it, Aisha observed. As a deity of life, she could tell Axis's energy was suffused with life aura. My power is called chi. It can destroy as well as sustain life. When I channel chi that contains life energy, I can heal and restore, Axis explained. In my view, Axis continued, your mastery over life energy rivals that of that large green fellow. The difference is mostly scale. For precision and subtlety, you're actually superior. Across the warp, Aisha's reputation for counteracting Nurgle's plagues was well-founded. Whenever Nurgle unleashed some rot, she would find an antidote and send it down into the lower realms. Axis had also realized that Chi was a primal energy, able to contain many kinds of power. Life energy was only one aspect of it. Aisha smiled faintly. I wouldn't say guidance exactly, but I'd like to exchange techniques. Your energy, it's not of the warp, yet it's not from our material universe either. Am I right? Axis nodded. I'm not from this universe. In my world, life forms use Chi. Most Chi released is destructive. Only a small fraction is applied to life. As one of the warp's denizens, Aisha could perceive that Axis came from an outside system. The idea that a visitor from another reality could even negotiate with Khorne made sense now. Axis also had a new thought. What would happen if he cultivated a practitioner inside the life goddess's domain? Building a life planet within the webway would situate it in the material universe, giving him the perfect laboratory for cultivation. We'll exchange properly once we're safe, Aisha said, intrigued. Quick, we're almost at the exit. Qiao Gaoqi's voice urged ahead. They reached the barrier of Nurgle's garden. The laughing god studied the massive ward. Let's get out quietly. No attention. If they could simply slip back into the webway, they would be safe. Mission accomplished. The laughing god couldn't hide his glee at the thought of how furious Nurgle would be to return and find his prized garden empty. The laughing god was ready to cast a spell to whisk Axis and Aisha away, but Axis raised a hand to stop him. This next move can't be so secretive, Axis said. We need to be a little more conspicuous. He clasped his hands at his waist. Golden green light erupted and focused around him. Axis planned a grand gesture, a message. Super Qigong wave, he shouted, mimicking the most dramatic of mortal techniques. A thick, roaring torrent of golden energy like a kamehameha of Qi surged forward and struck Nurgle's barrier. In the warp, the sound of the impact was almost physical. Pure Qi met the will of a chaos god. Golden green light tangled with fetid brown-green corruption and detonated. The shockwave flattened the surrounding plague wood. Nurglings and plague-bearers were blown to putrid pulp, swathes of rotten forest ripped asunder. The Qigong wave could not destroy Nurgle's true essence, but Axis's raw, brutal force tore a huge hole in the garden. The two gods beside him stared in stunned silence. They hadn't expected such an assault. Now, move! Axis grabbed Aisha and Qiao Gaoqi, letting the Qi flame transform them into a golden meteor that shot through the new breach. They burst out of Nurgle's garden and into the outer reaches. Axis, why make such a scene? Weren't we supposed to be covert? This will surely alert Nurgle, the laughing god hissed. Being loud guaranteed notice from a god who ruled his own lair. I have my reasons, Axis said, smoothing his hands as if dusting them off. If we'd slipped out quietly, Nurgle might never have known who took Aisha. He could have blamed Slaanesh. That would have been useful, pitting two chaos gods against each other. Do you think Slaanesh is stupid? Or Nurgle? This is Nurgle's domain. If we disappear quietly, he'll find out anyway, especially once Aisha hides in the webway. He will know that you and I took her. Hoping to drive them into fighting each other is wishful thinking. Axis smiled. Exactly. So instead of skulking away, I wanted him to know who did it. He imagined the scene. Nurgle returning with the others and discovering his treasure gone, and then seeing the shredded ruin of his garden. Green, fat one, I've taken your beloved life goddess. What are you going to do about it? Why wait 10,000 years for the Emperor to burn Nurgle's garden? Axis thought, I'll do it first. It was a deliberate provocation. Give Father Nurgle a taste of his own medicine. Aisha looked at him with approval. The laughing god blushed, but inwardly he felt the same thrill. Boldness suited a male god. Qiao Gaoqi, Mr. Axis is right. Sometimes you have to be bold and give those chaos gods a bit of their own medicine, the life goddess said. All right. Then what's next? Qiao Gaoqi asked, shrugging but resigned. His caution was a matter of survival. Together, the Eldari gods could not beat a single chaos god. For now, Axis had made himself the obvious target for Nurgle's revenge. The laughing god knew he might have to hide in the Black Library for a long while. Nurgle won't let this go, and Slaanesh will probably notice too. We must get into the webway as fast as we can, Axis said. They nodded and hurried toward the webway entrance, leaving the torn, fetid remnants of Nurgle's garden and the echo of his fury behind them. At the same time Axis struck at Nurgle's garden, Nurgle, locked in combat with the Emperor, felt a new disturbance. Something had violently assaulted his little garden. He couldn't afford to be distracted, though. The Chaos Gods were pouring themselves into Horus in the warp, trying to crush the Emperor. Any lapse in their focus would weaken that pressure. "What are you doing, you idiot? Focus! This is a crucial battle," Slaanesh snapped, more than a little annoyed. They couldn't manifest in full. They were channeling power into Horus instead. Still, the Emperor was no ordinary opponent. He was the true avatar of the Dark King. "Nurgle, what's wrong?" Khorne asked. From the way things were unfolding, Axis had apparently succeeded. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Unexpectedly, Khorne found himself doing work that might have been Tzeentch's. The whole scheme was one of the most intricate conspiracies the universe had ever seen. Nurgle's voice trembled with unease. "I feel something. Wrong. My garden. Someone has attacked it." He feared he might have lost something precious. Perhaps an artifact? But plague trinkets were trivial to him. His real concern was the unique treasure in that garden. He had always trusted its defenses. Maybe some newborn subspace god had stumbled in. It didn't matter. When this battle was over, he would go and teach the fool a lesson. Not every corner of the warp was free to be barged into. Slaanesh's grin split his face. "Your garden was attacked?" "Delicious news," he purred with obvious relish. He had nearly consumed the Eldar gods before. Khorne had intervened, trying to steal Kaila Mencha Kain, shattering her into fragments, while Nurgle snatched the life goddess Isha. Slaanesh still resented Nurgle for fighting him over that prize, and always looked for ways to reclaim what he had lost. Nurgle glared back. Neither god blinked. "Quiet. Now is not the time for this," Tzeentch cut in sharply. The four were in the middle of a fight. None of them could afford to be sidetracked. Still, Nurgle's unease lingered like a sour taste. Was everything all right at home? They dropped the argument and refocused on the Emperor. In real space, only minutes had passed. After the sacrifice of the first War Master, Ulpitson, the Emperor's power flared like never before. Even bolstered by the divine might of the four, Horus could at best wound him. The momentum of the battle was tilting toward the Emperor. With two Eldar gods escorting him and Axis wrapped in protective chi energy, they reached the webway entrance on Terra, where Axis had earlier slipped into the warp. Magnus had shored the area with psychic wards, and Axis had left a heavy veil of chi energy as an extra barrier. "We're here, the webway entrance." The laughing god's voice breathed relief. At last he could return to his old lair. The warp always left him nervous. The Black Library, his refuge, felt safer. Then again, ever since Axis had brought Khorne there, albeit only as a psychic projection, it didn't seem so safe anymore. "Stop talking. Let's get out of here. I don't want to wait another minute," Isha said. More than Nurgle, she feared Slaanesh. Only inside the webway could she finally breathe. "Don't worry, we're leaving now." The laughing god gave a peculiar chuckle and wove a psychic spell that carried Axis and the Eldar life goddess into the webway. Solid rules of the material universe began to reassert themselves. Axis felt like he finally had a ground beneath his feet. Once inside, the life goddess's materialized form blurred and became translucent. The laughing god, Chao Gaoki, shimmered the same way. Gods from the warp could not fully manifest in real space. Even in the webway, they were more like illusions. To act in the material universe, they typically had to borrow the bodies of followers. That felt unfair. Mortals could enter the warp, yet most warp gods were restricted. Axis's soul, however, radiated a strength that made the gods take notice. Though mortal, his essence rivaled theirs. There were secrets bound up in this visitor. "This doesn't look like the ancient webway," Isha observed once she felt secure. "It's new, fragile." "No, it's not the old one's webway," Axis agreed. "This is a webway carved by the human emperor. I saw him in the warp. His essence is more terrible than the chaos gods," Isha said, choosing the pronoun without hesitance. She had sensed something inhuman about him. The Golden One wants humanity to stop using the warp and travel through the webway instead. Then the laughing god explained. He even developed a new type of hyperdrive. It's not as sophisticated as what the Necrons had, but it's a huge step. Humans aren't ready to use the webway yet, Aisha said. She was right. The webway is tricky. With current human tech, they couldn't reliably navigate it. More importantly, the old ones carved the webway and the Eldar inherited it. It has always been their territory. Anyone trying to use the old passages would clash with the Eldar's vested interests. If humans wanted it, they'd have to carve a new network of their own. Humans will carve out their own webway, Axis said. One day we'll control it. Then I wish you success, Isha replied. Where will I settle? How about here? Axis asked with a smile. You can settle right nearby. Aisha scoffed. Are you joking? This webway is unstable. If Nurgle or Slaanesh find me, they could smash through at any moment and capture me. She'd seen the dense sea of daemons beyond. She had no desire to be left as bait. I am the life goddess, not a war deity. Haha, I'm kidding. Axis grinned. I found ruins of an ancient Eldar city in this system, an intact complex. It should be an old One's-era webway city. Why don't you make that your home? He wasn't seriously suggesting she guard Terra's webway gate. Aisha was no warrior. She had to nurture the divine tree, and Axis wouldn't expose that to the chaos gods. He had a better site in mind, the area where he had fought the Emperor. It offered vast space and isolation. The deepest webway reaches, near the Black Library, would be safest. A labyrinth of passages that would be nearly impossible to navigate without an Eldar Harlequin or Chiao Gao Ki. But getting too close to the Black Library risked contact with terrifying divine energies, and Chiao Gaoqi's cautious temperament might veto that option, so Axis avoided it. I know the ruins you mean, Chiao Gaoqi said. The Akaru Webway City. The Akaru Webway City? Perfect. I'll settle there, Aisha responded. Her voice brightened. So you promise you'll prepare a body for me? She looked forward to that promise. Having a vessel in the material universe mattered profoundly to a warp god. Axis had promised. A body that could hold her soul would change everything. Hearing this, Axis glanced at the laughing god. The laughing god was supposed to prepare the life goddess's body. Axis was only supplying the spirit tree fruit. Oh, there's still a lot of preparation to do. It could take 10 years, maybe 100, the laughing god said with a rueful smile. Life goddess Aisha rolled her eyes and shot a look at Axis that clearly said, How unreliable are you people? What's the delay? I already handed you the stuff. Don't tell me it's not ready. Axis frowned. Buddy, that thing isn't ordinary. A mortal couldn't even take a bite. The life energy inside it would overwhelm them. We also have to pick a suitable host, and that selection has to be done by the craft world Eldar. And you know how lax the Eldar can be. They haven't even chosen a candidate yet, the laughing god replied. You two, Axis and Khorne, dumped this on me with no time to prepare. You brought me to Holy Terra and the fighting started right away. Only a few days have passed. You expect me to pick someone, fortify them, and hand them over in a matter of days? What a joke. He went on, more heated. Even my clown troop members who've had spirit tree fruit for 100 years still need over 10 years to fully assimilate one. I've experimented. Axis gave me a lot beforehand. Even one of my strongest troop members would need more than a decade. An ordinary Eldar woman would be worse. And I don't have the chi energy needed to strengthen my subordinates. Why not pick someone from your clown troop then? Axis asked. What? Those are my followers. Do you know what followers mean to a god? My followers cannot be used as a vessel for another god, the laughing god said, rolling his eyes. Fine, let's settle here in the webway for now and leave the body matter for later, Axis suggested. The life goddess was understanding. That's all right, I can wait. Our agreement still stands. The three of them nodded. Led by the laughing god, they soon arrived at the ruined webway city where Axis and the Emperor had fought before. The damage was catastrophic. The final battle between Axis and the Emperor had nearly destroyed half of the place. Returning stirred something in Axis, as if that great confrontation had been yesterday. Aisha selected a relatively intact world among the ruined planets that made up the webway city. An Eldar webway city wasn't a single settlement but a cluster of living worlds, an interconnected habitat lit by stars spanning Kamara. She smiled, spread her hands, and poured out a surge of life-divine power. The chosen planet erupted with vitality. Green plains unfurled, towering trees sprang up, and small animals appeared. The life goddess had manifested her divine kingdom, her life garden, transforming a dead, desolate ruin into a living world in an instant. In other words, she had turned it into a life god star, a god's dwelling. "This environment will do. I will take residence here," Aisha said. "So, Mr. Axis, when will we plant the divine tree you mentioned?" "That can wait," Axis replied. "I need to handle the Imperium's current affairs first. I'll come to work on the species after that. But before then, may I perform an experiment on your life planet?" Axis had a spatial storage device from the warp incident. He had packed all his belongings into it, among them his cultivator seeds. The life goddess smiled and nodded. "Of course, Mr. Axis." Axis explained the experiment. "I want to cultivate a special life form here called a cultivator. I brought them from another world. Their vital signs are similar to orcs, but they're stronger from the start and highly plastic. They can absorb other genes and evolve. Most importantly, besides me, they're the only beings here capable of using chi energy." He opened the storage and produced over 20 cultivator seeds. Since his transmigration, only 5 true cultivators had been grown: Phoenix, Do-O, and 1 each for Magnus, Sanguinius, and Lionel Johnson. Do-O served the Wolf King. Phoenix followed Axis, constantly assisting with strengthening and modifying Legion members. "Such creatures exist? Can they fuse with any genes?" Aisha's eyes lit up. "Technically, yes," Axis said. "I haven't tested all possibilities, but theoretically they can. If cultivated by ordinary means, their combat strength won't be extreme, though." Axis set to work. He dug a pit a little over a meter deep. This time, he planned to use a gene seed couched with cyan blood. He wanted to create a cultivator with cyan power. He planted the gene seed, then buried a cultivator seed, covered them, and poured a bottle of spirit tree fruit juice into the soil. He then pumped a large amount of chi energy into the buried seed. The seed began to thrash and ravenously absorb the chi. In a few minutes, a 2-meter-4 tall figure pushed from the earth, human-shaped, bald, green-pointed ears. It hadn't inherited a cyan tail, at least it wouldn't turn into a great ape, but it bore a human form. Not handsome, perhaps, but solid and imposing. The gene modifications had also granted it 19 superhuman organs, making it an enhanced Space Marine-level warrior. "Klaus, my great gene father, thank you for granting me life." The newborn knelt, pledging fealty to Axis. Axis smiled. "From this day, your name will be Klaus. You are a member of the Golden Legion." "From this day forward, I am Klaus, and I will follow you into battle," the cultivator agreed. Klaus was noticeably stronger than an ordinary Golden Legionnaire. Cultivated on the Life Goddess's world, his life aura was exceptionally strong, even more potent than the other cultivators Axis had made. Both Aisha and the Laughing God had watched the whole process with keen interest. "What a wondrous life form," the Laughing God murmured. "And they can use chi energy, an inherited power. Jealous, truly. Except for Axis, only these cultivators can wield chi. Not even Axis's sons have it." Axis was ready to depart. "Klaus will remain as my contact here," he said. "Wait," Aisha called before he left. Watching the birth of the cultivator had given her a new thought. "Perhaps there's no need for an Eldar maiden to sacrifice herself. Maybe we can use a different method to make a divine body for me." "Miss Aisha?" Axis asked. "Use your cultivator seed to create a body for me," she said. "If the cultivator can take on your bloodline and human characteristics, it can also take on Eldar traits. We can cultivate it female to serve as my vessel. I can feed it with my powerful life force." "Theoretically possible," Axis admitted, stroking his chin. He could see what she was angling for. She wanted access to his chi energy. He wouldn't give that. He also didn't intend to use the cultivator seeds he'd brought from the Dragon Ball world. Instead, he would use the seeds that had been left behind when Phoenix entered Nirvana. He could supply a suitable body, but he would not hand over his chi energy. "All right," Axis said, deciding, "we'll try with a cultivator seed, but the body is one thing. My chi stays with me." Chapter 292, The Emperor's Suggestion to Give the Goddess of Life Chi Energy. "Thank you so much, Mr. Axis." The life goddess Aisha's eyes narrowed into a smile. She hadn't expected Axis to agree so readily. She had watched the entire birth of the cultivator and knew it carried chi. Not the same powerful, pure chi Axis possessed, but still chi, an energy unique in the universe. Aisha felt its importance instinctively. Chi was bound to life itself and could significantly enhance her power. Axis smiled and reached into his spatial device, producing the cultivator seeds from the Warhammer universe. When I first arrived here, the first cultivator I planted reached the end of its life and transformed into a special plant that then produced new seeds. I harvested dozens of these second-generation cultivator seeds. He spoke generously as he handed her more than a dozen of them. They don't have chi like the originals, but their bodies are otherwise comparable to your Eldar. The mood turned awkward. Aisha studied the seeds Axis had given her, speechless. These second-generation seeds were far weaker in life essence than the first generation. She could sense no chi in them. "Mr. Axis, you can't be serious," she said. "I meant the first-generation seeds you used just now, to cultivate a body for me with that kind of energy. These inferior seeds, even if they could grow a body, it wouldn't be fit for me. They couldn't contain my powerful soul." "Miss Aisha, I assure you the second-generation seeds are suitable," Axis replied. "I will reinforce them with chi and give you some spirit tree fruit. These spirit tree fruits are considered defective god fruit, but they can elevate a cultivated body to the level needed to contain your soul." Unsuitable? There was no such thing, Axis thought. The second-generation cultivator seeds simply lacked chi. They were not defective. Besides, Phoenix had already pushed a cultivator to its limit before he died. In the Dragon Ball world, these seeds would still be top grade. The only shortfall was the absence of chi. "Mr. Axis, I think you misunderstand. I want your first-generation seeds. We're allies now. I will gladly plant that god fruit for you. You should have a few first-gen seeds from earlier. Why not give me one?" Aisha pressed, genuinely puzzled. "I stick to fair trade," Axis said. "The Laughing God and I rescued you from Nurgle's garden. You are to plant the god tree for us. Providing you with a mortal body was agreed upon, but that agreement did not include chi." Aisha rolled her eyes. She'd hoped to get some chi for free, but this rugged man had a keen sense of business. She glanced at the Laughing God, expecting him to speak up. The Laughing God merely shrugged and shook his head. He'd risked his life to rescue her. He wasn't about to see Axis give away his unique energy for nothing. "If it were me, I wouldn't give it either," he seemed to say with that helpless shake. "Mr. Axis, the real hero in saving me should be the clown god," Aisha said, trying to twist the narrative. "Without him, you would have been lost in the warp. Without him, we wouldn't have entered the garden or opened that sealed door. You couldn't have rescued me at all." "Let me clarify, Aisha," the Laughing God replied dryly. "Without Axis's chi shielding you, I wouldn't have survived the corrosive energies in that garden. Human efforts mattered too. If not for the human emperor distracting the Chaos Gods, you wouldn't have escaped so easily. Most importantly, Aisha, we are no longer the mighty Eldar gods we once were. You and I are the only two Eldar gods still alive now." His meaning was clear. Aisha should stop imagining she could use old charms and seduction to own the future. The galaxy had shifted. Humanity, strengthened and organized, was ascendant. The reason she could leave the warp and shelter in the webway was because Axis had negotiated with Khorne and with the Laughing God. When the other Chaos Gods, Nurgle and Slanesh, turned their covetous eyes on her, she would need to cling to a powerful protector. For the moment, Axis was the most suitable anchor. The Laughing God's words were a pointed reminder to Aisha to stop playing coy. Axis smiled faintly at the Laughing God's rare praise. He liked clever people, and among the Eldar gods, this clown god amused him. "All right, Miss Aisha, I don't have much time," Axis said. "I need to get back to the battle. The duel between the Emperor and Horus is probably reaching its end." "How about a trade, then?" Aisha proposed. "I'll exchange my knowledge of life energy and divine power for some of your chi. The god tree you want me to plant needs a lot of chi to accelerate its growth. If I had chi, things would be easier. Also, you can use my life planet in the future to plant new cultivators. I think the soil there would be better than most." She had learned something while escaping Nurgle's garden. The god fruit Axis wanted planted needed massive chi to stimulate it. Axis needed the fruit because he hoped to ascend to godhood. He could no longer rely on faith energy. After the Golden Throne, most of humanity's faith would belong to the Emperor. The fruit's internal energy might provide an alternate route to divinity. As an Eldar goddess, Aisha had experience with divine power and offered that expertise. Axis firmly shook his head. Chi in the Warhammer universe was unique. No price would make him give it away. Still, Aisha's words sparked a thought. Cultivators were the only beings besides himself who had chi. Could an entity gain chi by occupying a cultivator body? Great daemons in the warp could possess mortal bodies. Slanesh had taken Fulgrim's body for a time, for example. But that approach only worked early on. Once a cultivator's soul had been strengthened by chi and materialized, like Phoenix, the body could not be possessed by daemons. When a cultivator's life ended, its soul would transform and become a soul entity, a state born of chi enhancement. That was why a simple possession trick would not work on a mature cultivator. Name your price then, Isha insisted. I must have chi. Once I saw it, I knew how vital it was to me. Whatever it costs, I want the right to use that power. Just then, a majestic, sacred voice entered Axis's mind. He recognized the contact immediately. The Emperor, Neos. Father-in-law, what's happening? Axis blurted. The Emperor was psychically contacting him now. Had the Golden Throne already been taken? Had the duel ended? The god fruit you will plant requires a lot of chi to nourish it. Chi can purify warp energy, the Emperor said matter-of-factly. Khorne will supply chaos divine power, but Khorne's power is violent, corrupting. You need someone to continuously purify it, or else you'll be trapped beside the god tree forever. Give the life goddess the chi. Axis had already told the Emperor about the bargain with Khorne. Such matters could not be concealed after the Emperor ascended the throne. The Emperor continued, the duel with Horus is over. Horus has been defeated. The struggle against the 4 chaos gods in the warp amplified my psychic power. As I finish my ascension, I can mobilize sacred warp energy to help you plant the god fruit. Have you ascended the Golden Throne? Axis asked. Not yet, the Emperor answered. But soon. When I can, I will aid you in the planting. One life goddess alone cannot handle the corrupting power at the heart of that tree. The Emperor felt, dimly, that the god fruit Axis intended to plant was important not just to Axis but to him as well. In a bleak future he had glimpsed, the fruit offered the possibility of stepping away from the Golden Throne. It was a slender hope, the idea that his burden might one day be shared. I understand, Axis said, but I'll need benefits in return. Agree to her, Axis. The Emperor's counsel was sharp. Axis had to secure the goddess' wholehearted cooperation in planting the tree. In exchange for granting chi now, Axis would require her help in cultivating the tree, teaching him to use divine and life energy and some rights over her life god star. That's acceptable, Aisha said quickly. If you teach me chi and divine energy, I'll agree to anything. Axis nodded, finalized the terms with the 2 Eldar gods, and turned for Holy Terra. The webway had stabilized. Magnus contacted him, guiding him to the exit near the Golden Throne. Aboard the Vengeful Spirit, the Emperor lay grievously wounded, his immortal body mangled, close to irreversible damage. The Golden Greatsword, blazing with raw psychic power, descended upon Horus, who could no longer resist. For an instant, Horus's expression cleared and he offered the Emperor a small, almost relieved smile. But the sword fell without hesitation. The War Master's life ended there. The duel was over. As the Golden Greatsword fell, War Master Horus's soul and body were annihilated by the Emperor. The blow spent, the Emperor's form went slack. In the psychic realm, he had battled the Chaos 4 gods, and in the physical, he had held Horus at bay. But the effort had taken everything from him. Kratos, who had watched the fight from the edge, sprang up at once and took his grandfather's weight. When the duel ended, the shadows of the Chaos 4 gods receded and were swept back into the warp. With that malignant presence withdrawn, Rogel Dorn and several other Geneseed Primarchs were finally able to force their way into Horus's flagship. Dorn and Captain General Valdor were the first to reach the chamber where the Emperor and Kratos lay. "Grandfather, are you all right?" Kratos asked, supporting the Emperor with frantic hands. The Emperor's face was bleak. For an immortal such as he, recovery should already have begun, but his body gave no sign of mending. He clung to life by a thread. "I'm not all right," the Emperor said with a bitter smile. "It's very bad." Kratos' face went white. "Impossible. Grandfather, you're the ever-living. Even if your flesh is ruined, you should be able to recover. If you're gravely wounded, we'll take you back. Father has many spirit tree fruits. Their life energy can surely save you." Kratos is right. We should return to Holy Terra immediately. Axis' spirit tree fruit will heal you. Rogel Dorn urged. The Emperor shook his head. He looked at them with a tired, almost apologetic expression. There are things you do not understand. But yes, return to Holy Terra. Tell every Primarch who can come. Gather in the Great Hall. They must all be present. Only then did the others realize the wider picture. With Horus dead, the Chaos forces would be left without a leader and should collapse into disarray. Dorn, Valdor, Kratos, and the others supported the Emperor onto a transport and took him back to the palace on Holy Terra. Word went out. Besides the Primarchs who kept pursuing rebellious forces, Sanguinius, Ferrus Manus, Vulcan, Korax, and Chagatai Khan all set course for the palace. Axis himself arrived at the edge of the webway as Magnus's psychic hand guided him. The webway was quiet now. The tide of daemons had rolled back. Magnus, grim and still wary, had set a psychic barrier around the exit. "You were reckless, Axis," Magnus snapped the moment the latter stepped out. He was furious. The last time Axis had gone into the warp alone, he had vanished for almost a century and missed events of enormous consequence. Axis lifted his hands in a careless shrug. "I had a mission. I rescued Aisha, the Eldari life goddess, and with her help, we planted the fruit. It had to be done. If I had delayed, I would have lost my chance to challenge the Dark King." "Kasha nearly tore herself apart to follow you," Magnus said, his voice still hard. "You don't understand how dangerous the warp is." Axis glanced back toward the palace. The transport bearing the Emperor came through the palace gates supported by Kratos, Rogel Dorn, and Valdor. Kasha rushed to meet them when she saw the Emperor's state. "Father, how did you get so hurt? What happened?" She cried. "Father, grandfather is badly wounded. Bring spirit tree fruit." Kratos called to Axis. Axis produced one from his cloak and handed it over. Kratos offered it to the Emperor, signaling him to eat, but the Emperor only smiled sadly and shook his head. "Thank you," he said. "But Kratos, Axis, my body is like a cup with a crack in it. The spirit tree fruit is water. A shattered cup cannot hold water." Dorn and Valdor looked stunned. The extent of the Emperor's wounds was beyond what any of them had expected. Only the Prime Minister Makardo allowed himself a silent, grieving breath. "Try your chi," Kasha urged. "Maybe Axis chi can help." Axis stepped forward and laid his palm to the Emperor's chest, pouring chi into him. For a while it taught some faint warmth, but it was quickly apparent that this was futile. No amount of chi could stitch together what had been sundered. These were not mere mortal wounds. These were the work of the Chaos Four gods, perhaps aided by the Dark King. Axis's face fell. When the Emperor had set out to confront Horus, this outcome had already been set into motion. "I told you," the Emperor said quietly, "do not waste your strength. While I still have a little time, there are things I must say." Their conversation halted with the thunder of boots at the palace entrance. Sanguinius, Ferrus Manus, Vulcan, Korax, and Chagatai Khan filed in, battered and exhausted, and with them came two arrivals nobody had expected, Lionel Johnson and Leman Russ. They had returned to Holy Terra at some unknown hour. "Lion King, old man, weren't you engaged with the Raiden?" Axis asked, surprised. It had been decades since he had last seen Russ. Russ was carrying a severed head, one of the Gene Seed Primarchs perhaps, though Axis did not recognize it. "Holy Terra was besieged," Russ said bluntly. "We came back. We met Alfarius on the way. He's dead, by our hands." Lion gave a curt nod. "We heard Horus was closing on the palace. We turned back to reinforce. We encountered Alfarius and slew him." The news struck the room. Regret shadowed Lion and Russ's faces that they had not come sooner to end the traitor Horus themselves. Axis, turning to practicalities, pulled another spirit tree fruit from his satchel. "All of you are hurt," he said. "Share this. Its life energy will heal your injuries." The Primarchs accepted the fruit, splitting it among themselves. Each took sustenance from it and felt their inner reserves restored, wounds knitting, fatigue ebbing. The difference was immediate. Their vigor returned enough to stand and attend to the Emperor. Supported by Kratos and Kasha, the Emperor was brought to the Golden Throne. Magnus stood before him, eyes swollen and brimming with things he had not asked. "Father, have you made your decision?" Magnus asked, unable to hide the tremor in his voice. The Emperor looked at Magnus with an expression of tired certainty. "Magnus," he said slowly, "others may not know why, but you do. This cannot be changed." Chapter 294, The Lord of Mankind, Eternally Trapped on the Throne. Magnus finally let out a helpless sigh. He rose slowly and with heavy steps walked down from the golden throne. There was nothing he could do to change the situation now. After all these years sitting beside the Emperor at the golden throne, maintaining the safety of the webway and overseeing the Imperium's navigation and communications, he understood better than anyone the power and horror of the thing that had taken hold of his father. It was a dark king they could not fight. With a thought, it could reduce him to ash, burning his body in the real universe and devouring his spirit in the warp. If it were to truly be born, it would mean the end of the universe. The first sacrifices would be the souls of humanity, Primarchs, Space Marines, and ordinary mortals alike. No one would be spared. Perhaps only Axis might escape, because Axis was not an inherent part of this world and had no tie to the Dark King. "Father-in-law, I swear I will protect the Imperium of Man," Magnus said, kneeling on one knee before the Emperor. All he could do in that moment was pledge his life to defend the Imperium and the foundation his father had built. The Emperor nodded, patted Magnus on the shoulder, then turned and slowly sat. The moment he touched the golden throne, a wave of sensation hit him. Darkness, cold, despair, and a pain impossible to put into words pressed back into his body. He knew that once he sat, he might never rise again. There were only two possible outcomes if he stood. The first, his fall into the Dark King and the destruction of everything, the fate that had always been the only outcome. The second, a new hope that had appeared after Axis's arrival. Axis had cultivated the perfect fruit of godhood, defeated the Dark King, repaired the Emperor's body, and given him a chance to stand again. That hope was why the Emperor still tried. All the Gene Seed Primarchs gathered before the Golden Throne. Axis's family, Captain General Valdor, Lord High Counselor Mikado. Seeing the Emperor's immense suffering, Mikado stepped forward with great reluctance and took one of the Emperor's hands, helping to bear some of the throne's pressure and torment. He infused a great amount of psychic power into the Emperor. Kasha came to the other side and nourished the Emperor with her own psychic energy. Both of them soon discovered a terrifying truth. It was as if a black hole-like thing sat inside the Emperor, madly sucking everything in. "My children, my family, my closest friends, and my son-in-law, I have things to tell you. From now on, I will no longer speak with any of you," the Emperor began slowly. "Father-in-law, what happened? Why must you sit on the golden throne?" "Magnus, he could help. He could even take your place for a while." "I can," Kasha asked, bewildered. The other Primarchs shared her confusion. Sitting on the golden throne was supposed to block the webway entrance and use tremendous psychic power to ignite the Astronomicon and guide the Imperium's warp travel. Magnus and the Emperor could do those tasks separately. There was no need for the Emperor to shoulder everything alone. "My children, if I do not sit on the golden throne, I will die. I have only a day left in my body's natural life. If I finish speaking with you, I will activate the throne's stasis field, and my body will be kept forever in this moment. Otherwise, when today passes, I will die completely," the Emperor explained briefly. One reason was the Dark King's pressure. The other was simple physiology. The Emperor's body was failing. "Father-in-law," they cried. They wanted to press him for more, but the Emperor waved them silent. "I may yet recover. The key lies with Axis, but you must not ask why, nor what Axis will do. Only 3 of you know the truth. Axis, Lord High Counselor Mikado, and Magnus. I want each of you to promise never to reveal these secrets." Regarding the Dark King, only those 3 truly knew. Axis knew the most, and Axis was the only one who could give the Emperor hope of standing again. "I understand, father-in-law. I promise," Axis said, nodding. He did not promise lightly, but once given, he would keep it. "Father-in-law, I will keep this secret," Magnus added. Mikado, by virtue of their relationship, needed no promise. The Emperor trusted him without reservation. "Now, my final decree. Upon Guilliman's return, he shall serve as regent of the Imperium to restore the Imperium's strength and carry out military reforms. All of you must obey Guilliman's commands. The regent's authority is second only to mine. He will manage the Imperium on my behalf," the Emperor continued. He had to choose a successor before he entered stasis. He had once thought Horus or Kratos might be the proper heir, but after reflection, he decided the regent must be Guilliman. He was not even choosing Dorn. Dorn excelled at defense, but was too blunt, poor at political maneuvering. Guilliman, however, had the administrative skill to deal with mortals. The Primarchs were baffled. None had expected Guilliman, a man absent from this battle and not yet on Holy Terra, to be named regent. They had thought perhaps Axis, Kratos, or Rogal Dorn would receive the mandate. The High Lords of Terra unestablished must remain. Lord High Counselor Mikado will oversee them. Astartes should not overreach into mortal affairs. After I sit on the Golden Throne, the Great Crusade will end, the Emperor instructed, his voice weakening. Axis stepped forward and poured some of his life force into the Emperor, temporarily stabilizing him. Axis's chi energy was powerful, but the Emperor's body was like a damaged vessel. Too much infusion might shatter it. Father-in-law, must I obey Guilliman's orders? Axis asked. He did not want his future constrained, and took the moment while the Emperor could still speak to seek authority. You are not a politician, Axis, but you are the key to my future resurrection. You need not obey Guilliman, the Emperor said, granting Axis a special privilege. Among them, he would be exempt from Guilliman's command. After issuing those instructions, the Emperor lay back upon the Golden Throne. A force field enveloped him and froze his body in stasis. For the Emperor, his physical self would be locked in that moment. Time would barely affect him, while everything around him rushed forward. His spirit would be magnified by the throne and cast into the mysterious warp, made more powerful than ever as it fought the darkness inside him. Father-in-law, the Gene-Seed Primarchs knelt together, tears on their faces. Do not despair, Axis said. You have heard the Emperor's last words. I will save him, if my plan can be completed. I believe in you, Kratos answered first, standing. Grandfather told us not to question what you will do, so we will not. One by one the others, Leman Russ, Magnus, Rogal Dorn, and the rest, swore never to ask about the Emperor's secret. Today the Lord of Mankind sat on the Golden Throne in a state neither living nor dead, forever trapped there. Axis's secret was sworn to by all present. None would reveal what he intended to do. The loyal Primarchs not present would be told separately. Outside, the legions of Holy Terra began to push back, pursuing the fleeing forces of chaos. A day later, Guilliman arrived at Holy Terra with 400,000 Ultramarines, 250,000 from his original legion, and another 150,000 Marines he had created over the past year through a simplified surgical process. He was met immediately with terrible news. Although the Imperium had won the war, the Emperor lay grievously wounded. The Lord of Mankind was trapped upon the Golden Throne and would no longer speak to his people. On the orbit of Holy Terra, a vast, disciplined fleet of Ultramarines glided into the anchorage. On the bridge of the flagship Macrage's Glory, Robert Guilliman frowned as he stared out at the scarred, smoke-choked Imperial city beyond the viewport. Communication channels crackled with a chaotic blend of triumphant cheers and mournful cries. The cold bridge felt oppressively heavy in a way he had never known on Terra. Sir, we have a landing guidance signal from Terra, the captain reported. Connected at once, Guilliman said, his voice deep but threaded with an almost imperceptible anxiety. The foreboding in his chest had only grown stronger on the approach. He feared he had arrived too late. All he could do now was hope his father still lived. Lord Robert Guilliman, Valdor's voice came through the communit. Welcome to Terra. By the Emperor's will, we have won, but the cost is great. Guilliman's heart dropped. Commander Valdor. The Emperor, my father. He needed an answer. Valdor did not reply directly. He only motioned to step aside. Please follow me, my lord. All loyal Primarchs, Lord Axis, Lord Mikado, and the High Lords of Terra await you in the throne room. Everything will be made clear there. Guilliman nodded and, with a contingent of his gene-seed scions, boarded a landing craft for the gates of the Imperial Palace. The palace corridors were scarred and still being cleared of corpses. Every step crushed the remains of battle. Shattered pillars, blackened bloodstains, and charred detritus told of the madness that had raged here. Guilliman's heart grew heavier with each step. When he finally entered the Golden Throne Room, magnificence and dread met him in equal measure. The colossal Golden Throne sat like a tombstone at the far end of the hall, its presence radiating a chilling psychic fluctuation. Upon it sat the man Guilliman had revered above all, his father, the Lord of Mankind, the Emperor, enshrouded in a pale blue stasis field like a crystal sarcophagus. Time seemed to have frozen within. The face that had once held boundless majesty was fixed in an expression of indescribable pain. The Emperor's golden armor had dulled, and the massive, horrific wound in his chest lay exposed in grotesque permanence within the field. Around the throne stood those Primarchs who had been on Terra: Rogal Dorn, scarred but immovable; Magnus, his single eye shifting with psychic tremors; Axis, inscrutable as a fathomless depth; Kratos, still radiating lethal intent; Sanguinius, altered in temperament and bearing; the silent Vulcan; Ferris Manus; Leman Russ, the Wolf King; Lion L. Johnson. Lord High Counselor Micardo stood beside the throne. "Father!" Gilliman cried, voice breaking. What happened?" "Father, how could he be like this?" The thought that victory might have cost the Emperor his freedom to rule struck him cold. "Robert Gilliman, welcome back." Micardo stepped forward. "We won the war. Horus's rebellion has been crushed and the forces of chaos expelled. But to defeat Horus, the Emperor paid a price none of us imagined. His body was on the verge of total collapse. Ultimately, he chose the Golden Throne. From now on, he will remain here, unable to rule or speak to his people." Gilliman felt as if struck. Immense grief and guilt flooded him. He staggered, then fell to his knees before the cold throne, bowing his head in a prayer that felt like a confession. "Father, I'm sorry, I came too late. If I had arrived sooner, if I had been here, perhaps I could have prevented his duel with Horus." His carefully prepared armies, the traps he had planned for Horus, had all arrived in vain. Dorn's voice cut in, firm as hammered iron. "Everything is set, Gilliman. Pull yourself together. Before the Emperor took the throne, he entrusted us with his final will." Gilliman looked up, eyes bloodshot. Micardo stepped forward and, with a voice suddenly solemn and reverent, announced, "Robert Gilliman, kneel. Hear the Emperor's final and most sacred will." Gilliman bowed once more, ready to receive his father's decree. Micardo unrolled the imperial writ and read, his voice echoing through the hushed hall. "In the name of the Lord of mankind, at this sacred hour, I issue my final decree. My body is confined to the throne, and the Imperium must not be without a master for a single day. I appoint my 13th son, the Lord of Ultramar, Gene Seed Primarch of the Ultramarines, Robert Gilliman, as regent of the Imperium of Man. His authority and status are second only to mine. During the time I am unable to rule personally, Regent Gilliman shall exercise my powers, govern imperial military and civil affairs, adjudicate disputes, and be responsible for the survival and prosperity of the Imperium. Only the 12th Primarch, Axis, who bears a special mission, shall not be subject to the Regent's command, and is hereby ennobled as co-king of the Imperium of Man, with a status equal to the Regent. All other Primarchs, imperial institutions, military forces, space marine legions, the Mechanicus, navigator houses, planetary governors, whether mortal or Astartes, shall unconditionally obey the Regent's commands and laws. The High Lords of Terra shall remain, presided over by Lord High Counselor Micardo, to assist the Regent in the administration of imperial affairs and to maintain the operation of the Imperium. This order takes effect immediately. For the future of humanity, work together with one heart to overcome these dark times." A deathly silence fell over the throne room as the decree ended. Gilliman looked at the throne, then back at his brothers, stunned. Regent? To lead the whole Imperium? The honor and the burden exceeded even his wildest expectations. He had thought the Regent might be Axis or Dorn, or perhaps the venerated Sanguinius. Certainly not him, who had been far away in Ultramar and had not struck the final blow for Terra. And that other title, Co-King, assigned to Axis? What did it mean when another Primarch held equal rank? If their orders ever conflicted, to whom would the Imperium owe obedience? Co-King? Axis, your status is equal to mine? If we issue conflicting orders, whose should the Imperium follow? Gilliman demanded, fixing his gaze on Axis for an answer. Axis's voice was calm. "Literally, Gilliman, my status is equal to yours. But day-to-day governance of the Imperium is not my calling, and I will not lightly wield this authority. I have a more important and urgent mission to complete." The unusual title had been born partly from Axis's enigmatic role and partly from Dorn's unease at entrusting the entire Imperium to a single hand. Dorn's insistence, backed by the tacit approval of Magnus, Leman Russ, Lion L. Johnson, and even Sanguinius, led to the creation of the Co-King title, a check intended to balance power in an unprecedented crisis. All of this is the Emperor's will, Micardo said, his tone like a final judgment. The Emperor's last decree was law. Guilliman drew a steadying breath, swallowing his doubts and the weight of responsibility settling on him. He saw Axis and knew the mission was real. The practical burden of rule would fall to him. Guilliman turned to the golden throne and spoke, low and resolute as an oath. Father above, your will is my mission. I, Robert Guilliman, swear by my life and honor to do everything in my power to fulfill the duties of regent. I will rebuild imperial order, heal the wounds of war, and defend the Imperium of Man until my last drop of blood is spent. With that brief declaration, Guilliman set about the business of regency. The more he learned of the war, the thicker the fog around the Emperor's ascension to the throne became. I don't understand, he said sharply, turning to Rogel Dorn. Anger and confusion colored his voice. Dorn, tell me, Axis, Sanguinius, Chogoris, Lionel Johnson, they all arrived on Terra in time. With such forces arrayed, how could Horus have wounded Father so grievously? What really happened that forced Father to ascend the throne? By Guilliman's reasoning, with Magnus stabilizing the webway and the Emperor leading such a cohort of Primarchs, Horus could scarcely have prevailed. Victory should have been certain. The Emperor's mortal ruin and eternal confinement were a cost he could not reconcile. Magnus's single eye flicked between Axis and Micardo. There was a complexity there Guilliman could not read. Some truths, Brother Guilliman, the Father ordered to be known only by certain individuals. You are not among them. Axis bears an extremely important mission. Dorn's voice dropped like steel. This is not a matter for you to demand answers about. This must remain confidential. An order. After the Emperor fell silent, those Primarchs present who had witnessed the final moments had agreed to protect whatever faint hope for the Emperor's recovery remained. They had taken an extreme measure. Magnus had sealed the core memories of the truth from all Primarchs present except Axis, Micardo, and Magnus himself. The others remembered only that a secret must be kept and that the Emperor was confined to the throne for grievous wounds. Guilliman's knowledge was limited to the facts that Axis guarded the webway and that the Emperor returned severely wounded after personally confronting Horus. You're hiding something from me? Guilliman stood suddenly, his control cracking. Father appointed me regent at the last moment, entrusting the Imperium to me, yet you won't trust me with the truth? What kind of justice is that? Dorn's face was unmoved. The others exchanged looks, then slowly shook their heads in near unison. Their silence and the memory seal were proof enough. The danger the secret represented outweighed all else. Even the regent had to be excluded for the sake of that protection. To ensure the absolute security of this secret, Dorn said coldly, I asked Magnus for the seals. I too had my core memories closed. I know only that this is a secret we must protect with our lives. Guilliman's indignation burned, but he forced himself to rein it in. Dorn's stubbornness had always been a thorn in his side. These men had fortified their trust in ways that left him outside. Father had chosen him, yet his brothers had set up walls. He swallowed and turned his attention to the pressing reality of the situation. His gaze rested finally on Sanguinius, whose countenance had changed more than any other's. The Archangel's once golden hair had darkened to a red like congealed blood. His wings bore the same macabre hue. 2 sharp fangs pierced his lips, and an ominous vampiric power emanated from him. I will control it, Guilliman, Sanguinius said, voice hoarse. He pulled a cold iron mask over his face and, with effort, folded his blood-red wings beneath a wide cloak. It only needs time. Then can you still fight? Guilliman asked. The Imperium faces crises on all fronts. We must hunt down Chaos remnants and push back the Raiden who have invaded sacred Imperial territories. We must rebuild the Imperium, and do so quickly. Restoring lost worlds and pacifying widespread warfare would be the Regent's first and inescapable duty. For that, Guilliman needed his Primarch brothers whole, and he needed Sanguinius to be the ally he had been before the change. Sanguinius, in his current monstrous state, could no longer appear on the front lines to bolster morale. What the Imperial soldiers wanted to see was the Archangel in his golden armor, bathed in holy light, his pure white wings spread beneath the sky. If ordinary mortals caught sight of Sanguinius now, they might assume this gene seed Primarch had fallen. Gilliman had even worried, half jokingly and half terrified, whether Sanguinius might snap in battle and seize a mortal to bite their neck. The rumors of the Blood Angel's curse were no longer secret at Imperial High Command. Hearing Gilliman's concerns, Sanguinius forced a bitter smile. Staying lucid now was his limit. Once he plunged into a bloody battlefield, he could no longer predict his own actions. At times he entertained a desperate thought: return to Baal, seal himself in a stasis sarcophagus, and sleep beneath the ground forever. Of course, leave this to me. I'll find a way to bring Sanguinius back, Axis said, patting his chest. Strictly speaking, Sanguinius's current condition was largely a consequence of Axis's intervention. Axis had given him 4 spirit tree fruits in rapid succession. With 2 he had eaten previously, Sanguinius had consumed 6 in total. Those fruits had driven his body to its limits and awoken his true soul, his warp essence, more fully than ever. The only way to resolve it, Axis explained, was for Sanguinius to accept that warp essence completely and learn to control the transformed state. Resisting it was impossible, because the power was intrinsic to Sanguinius. Only by embracing himself, by truly becoming a deity of the warp and the material universe, could he switch freely between his Archangel and Blood Angel forms. If it's you, Axis, I can breathe easier, Gilliman said. How long will it take? A maximum of 1 year. If everything goes smoothly, only a few months, Axis replied, shrugging. Thank you, Sanguinius said, gratitude plain in his voice. The thought of remaining like this forever had nearly broken him. So Sanguinius won't be able to take part in the counterattack against the Raiden? Can you, Axis, join the campaign? Gilliman asked. If Axis could fight, other gene seed Primarchs might not even be needed. I can neutralize the Raiden's star godlike weapons, Axis answered. For the direct fighting, I'll send Kratos. With the other gene seed Primarchs helping, this war shouldn't be too hard, Axis added. Gilliman, you should stay on Holy Terra and focus on your secret mission. Leave this war to me, Kratos interjected. He had his own reasons. He could now reach Super Saiyan 2 and had the trump state of the Holy Psychic Great Ape. Dealing with the star godlike weapons would be no problem. You little rascal, you're confident, Axis said with a faint smile. But I'm interested in those weapons myself, so I'm coming along. If both you and your son join, that's ideal, Gilliman said. Then he turned to Lionel Johnson and Leman Russ. Russ, Lion King, brief me on the situation at the front. Leman Russ stepped forward. He recounted how, years ago, when Horus launched the Great Heresy, he had been ordered to Prospero. A warp storm by the Chaos Gods had swept him to the Imperial frontier, where war with the Raiden had erupted. Lionel Johnson had come to support him with the Sons of Tomorrow. Later, the Sons of Tomorrow and the Iron Warriors had reinforced. Russ and Lion King had brought only 1,000 men back to Terra. The main forces remained at the front, holding the line against the Raiden. They were barely in a stalemate. The Raiden's new star godlike weapons were devastating, and it was only thanks to Axis's cultivated warriors that they had not been routed. Still, casualties had been horrendous. After years of fighting, at least 200,000 Space Marines had been lost. 5 legions were currently below full strength, each having lost at least a third of their forces. I understand, Gilliman said. The situation is tight. My Ultramarines can deploy first to reinforce. My legion hasn't suffered major blows. Its total strength now reaches 400,000. The legions stationed on Holy Terra were shattered. The Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Raven Guard together could barely muster 1,000 men. The Imperial Fists had been crippled by the Webway War and the defense of Holy Terra. Fewer than 20,000 remained. The Blood Angels and White Scars had also taken heavy losses and were below 100,000 each, needing long rest and recovery. At present, the only large-scale forces the Imperium could field were Guilliman's Ultramarines, Axis's Golden Legion, and Kratos' forces. I can deploy 120,000 troops, Axis said. He had about 130,000 under his command now and room to expand. Uncle Gilliman, I have 150,000 men ready to go, Kratos added. I think I understand. The Golden Legion, Kratos' forces, and my Ultramarines will reinforce the front. A combined force of around 600,000 should be sufficient. The other legions will rest and recuperate, Guilliman said. Given how battered the remaining legions were, a period of recovery was essential. To be honest, if the Raiden War had not broken out, Guilliman's first proposal that day would not have concerned external operations at all, but demobilization, breaking the oversized legions into smaller, more efficient chapters to prevent future large-scale rebellion. Raising that issue now, however, would only meet with discontent or outright opposition. He would hold off and discuss it privately with Axis. This war was also an opportunity for him to solidify his authority. Our legions need rest, but that doesn't mean we must be idle, Ferrus Manus said. Korax volunteered his assistance. Take us with you, Guilliman. We will help. Although the White Scars have suffered heavy losses, my legion still stands at 70,000. I can contribute troops, Chagatai Khan said. These Xenos struck while the Imperium was torn by civil war. Such an ignoble act demands a crushing price, Vulcan declared. I have my own plans, Guilliman said calmly. With Axis and his son present to neutralize the enemy's psychic weapons, 2 or 3 legions will be enough to exterminate the Raiden, and will need forces to mop up Chaos remnants afterward. That task can be entrusted to the Gene Seed Primarchs who remain here. They discussed the deployments and decided that in 3 days, Guilliman, Axis, and Kratos would lead 3 great legions to the front. The other Primarchs would stay on Holy Terra to maintain order and hunt down the Chaos traitors. After the meeting, the Primarchs dispersed. Axis escorted Sanguinius back to his quarters, accompanied by Magnus, Kasha, and Kratos. Axis, do you really have a way to restore me? Sanguinius asked, impatience and hope warring in his voice. I know you're anxious. From now on, you must listen closely. You know why you've become like this. Your warp essence has fully awakened, Axis said. Then I need to seal it away and return to my original state. You and Magnus could tamp it down with your chi and psychic power, Sanguinius suggested. No, Axis interrupted. That's only treating the symptoms. Suppressing it will not cure the root cause. If you keep suppressing your true nature, the next eruption will be worse and more painful. Then what's the alternative? Sanguinius asked, frowning. There is a better way, Axis said. You must fully accept yourself. You still need to take 4 more spirit tree fruits to complete your ascension. After you consume the remaining 4, you will fully sublimate into a god, and only then will you be able to control both your archangel form and this blood angel state at will. Chapter 297, Complete Solution, Ascension Ceremony. Axis, what are you talking about? Look at me. It's because I listened to your nonsense and took that warp essence that I became like this. Father was right. We shouldn't be researching the warp. My monstrous appearance is proof. Sanguinius jabbed a finger at his pale, ghostly face and blood-red wings. The 2 fangs in his mouth made him look like a vampire. He even regretted following Axis's advice to eat those spirit tree fruits. If he hadn't eaten them, his warp essence wouldn't have run wild and taken over so much of his body. No, Sanguinius, this is the real you, Axis replied. Legends say archangels have 2 sides, a fallen side and a bright side. You used to hold the bright side. Now the fallen side has surfaced, but if you fully accept your duality, you can transform into this blood angel form in battle at will, gaining far greater power. And when you meet ordinary mortals or your gene seed offspring, you can switch back to your archangel state. This is the most perfect solution. Axis is right, Sanguinius, Magnus added from nearby. If you take 4 more spirit tree fruits, you can complete the sublimation, a dual refinement of soul and body. Please, Sanguinius said, voice ragged. This is your choice, not mine. I could snap at any moment. You don't understand how I feel. My personality is changing. Bloodthirsty, violent, even insane. I'm terrified that one day I'll fall into chaos like those traitor Primarchs. He took a steadying breath, forcing his anger down. Axis, Magnus, I agreed to your plan to deal with a future crisis. Now the crisis is averted. I beg you, respect my wish and seal away this warp essence. You should be able to do it. Magnus glanced at Axis, seeking his opinion. Axis nodded slowly. I understand, Sanguinius. If you insist, Magnus and I can work together to seal this power. But know this, it will flare again, and your gene seed offspring will carry the curse forever. It's a pity. If you'd followed Magnus and me earlier, you could have avoided this and solved the problem for your descendants completely. The Blood Angel's plight wasn't easily dismissed. This was a warp-born genetic disease. Unlike Magnus's mutation of flesh, this problem wasn't the work of chaos, but something intrinsic to Sanguinius himself. You mean if I listen to you now, I can completely cure the bloodthirst of my gene-seed offspring? Sanguinius's eyes trembled. Of course, Axis said. If you're not going to be a selfish father, finish what you started with Magnus and me. If you don't care about your gene seed, if you don't care that your descendants will inevitably become blood angels, you can keep running. You're baiting me, Axis, Sanguinius snapped. This is only a hypothesis. None of you have succeeded yet. You're using me as a test subject. You know your own problem, Magnus countered. Think about your brother in battle. Whose fighting style is more bloodthirsty and violent than yours? Even when calm, you are the most ferocious of warriors. St. Giles, you must trust Father, trust Teacher Magnus, and believe that the spirit tree fruit will work. Kratos joined in, urging Sanguinius on. Sanguinius stared at them both. He wasn't an irresponsible father. He never wanted to be. He could see no other path. He exhaled, an angry snort escaping him. Very well. I hope your plan works. Axis's expression softened into a satisfied smile. From his spatial device, he produced 4 spirit tree fruits, each cultivated on a different world. The last one was special, the psychic power fruit that had transformed a chaos planet. For my children, Sanguinius murmured, the last trace of doubt leaving his eyes. He reached out and took the first fruit without hesitation and swallowed it. Life surged through him like a torrent. Green veins ran beneath his pale skin as the first fruit's vitality pushed back some of the bloodthirsting agitation. He felt briefly like he was soaking in warm spring water. It was only a beginning. He crushed the second fruit with equal resolve, and another wave of life washed over him, further stabilizing his body. Yet as his warp essence stirred more actively, a wilder, bloodier aura began to leak out. Sanguinius groaned. Veins stood out across his skin, and his blood-red wings flared like living embers. Pain forced him to one knee, fangs cutting his lip. "Hold on, brother. Guide it!" Magnus growled, weaving potent psychic strands around Sanguinius to help bind the warp power that threatened to rend him. Sanguinius bit into the third fruit. The moment it passed his lips, his soul flared and stretched until it felt endless. The whispers of the warp swelled into deafening roars. Countless twisted visions assaulted his mind. He unleashed an inhuman roar. His blood wings beat, churning gusts of bloody scented wind. His hair whipped though there was no breeze, and the bloody light in his eyes threatened to swallow his sanity. He stood on the brink of losing himself. Axis's face grew grave as he presented the final fruit, the psychic power fruit that had purged and remade a chaos world, the one containing extraordinary purifying and reconstructive energies. This was the pinnacle, the one that would bring qualitative change. Swallow it, Sanguinius. This is the start of your new life. Face your fears. Embrace your warp essence. Axis urged, offering the fruit. Sanguinius relied on the last shred of his responsibility as a father and on the trust he had in his brothers. He sank his teeth into the fruit that shimmered with a strange gold-red light, as if stars flowed inside it. Boom, a roar unlike anything in the physical world erupted from the psychic storm of the warp. Magnitude of the psychic outburst threatened to overwhelm them all, but the combined power of Magnus, Axis, Kratos, and Kasha was strong enough to endure it. Magnus and Kasha immediately thrust up psychic barriers to hold the tempest at bay. Axis activated his chi to form a shield around himself and Kratos. At the storm's heart, Sanguinius was swallowed by dazzling white gold light. He screamed with a pain that seemed to come from his very atoms, a sound that slowly shifted from a vampire's shriek into something grander and more angelic. Light tore through his body, twisting and remolding him, bones stretched, shattered, and reknit, flesh dissolved and reformed. The blood-red stains on his wings flared like embers being burned away in a cleansing fire. The storm intensified, and Sanguinius's form flickered in and out of view, at one moment a struggling blood-winged thing, at another an outline of a noble archangel radiating pure light, eyes closed and resolve absolute. The two forms collided, shifted, and merged amid the conflagration. "Hold on, think of your offspring." Axis roared, his voice a conduit of powerful chi that cut through the storm and reached Sanguinius. As if answering that cry, the chaotic forms at the center of the storm steadied. The light receded in an instant, and a new Sanguinius floated where the tempest had been. Gone was the pale vampire visage. His skin had returned to a healthy, marble-smooth perfection that glowed warmly. The once blood-red wings were now pure, flawless gold. Each feather looked as if carved from the finest metal, edged with a faint halo of light that lent him a sacred, majestic presence. Chapter 298, Holy Angels and War Angels, My Holy Light. His face was as flawless as ever, the Archangel's compassion and nobility restored. The blood-red eyes had softened into a deep, star-like blue, the fangs gone so that his perfect mouthline was whole again. Sanguinius had returned to his original appearance, but his white wings were gone, replaced by a pair of golden wings. Every feather shimmered with a metallic luster, each edge sharper than before, and the wings themselves were larger, more majestic. "That's incredible, St. Giles," Kratos said from the side, awed. The gleaming golden form reminded him of the Super Saiyan transformations he and his father had seen. Kasha, standing nearby, smiled as well. "Congratulations, my brother. You did it. You can no longer be called an archangel. This is a holy angel," Magnus said, excitement in his voice. Sanguinius's success meant the possibility of similar evolution for others. Axis watched with a smile. The emergency evolution had changed more than Sanguinius's looks. His strength had been transformed. Axis could feel the new density of his body, and more importantly, Sanguinius's psychic power now radiated with a magnitude that made Axis think of the Emperor of old. His aura seemed stronger even than the Life Goddess or the Clown Gods. The Eldar gods had indeed been titans once, but now they were in decline. The Eldar race itself was gone from most of the universe. The Life Goddess, worshipped as the mother by the Eldar, could draw faith. The Clown God had only the faith of the Harlequins. "Holy Angel, that suits you," Sanguinius said, nodding with quiet satisfaction. "Sanguinius, how do you feel? Can you still use your old Blood Angel transformation?" Axis asked. "Yes, but that old form wasn't complete," Sanguinius replied. "My new combat form should be called the War Angel. Let me show you." A new pressure snapped outward, different from the corrupt taint of the warp. It was pure, primeval battle intent, raw, living, and feral. The bases of his golden wings darkened to a viscous, blood-like crimson that flowed outward to the tips until every feather burned like a living flame. His face remained perfect, but his features hardened into blades, and the calm radiance in his eyes became a savage hunger for combat, a force capable of tearing stars. He grew, height swelling until he stood around 5 meters tall, muscles bulging with catastrophic strength. The vampiric fangs were gone. In this War Angel state, he was all destruction and war. "This is unbelievable," Axis said, impressed. "The old Blood Angel form has vanished. This War Angel state is more violent. The wings look like burning blood. In this war state, I can emit a peculiar warp fluctuation," Sanguinius explained. "Any mortal who feels infected by my aura will erupt with boundless battle intent. Their combat power rises, similar to a war blessing." "Ha! That's perfect, brother. Your psychic power now, even sitting on the Golden Throne, could rival mine," Magnus said, genuinely surprised. Sanguinius's current presence was like that of a warp god who had taken true form in the physical universe, perfectly suited to it. Sanguinius bowed to Magnus and Axis. "This is thanks to your encouragement and persistence. I owe you both much," he said sincerely. "Don't be modest," Axis replied. "Can this solve the problem with your gene seed offspring?" Sanguinius answered at once. The blood curse had come from his inability to control the bloodthirsty aspects of his power. Now, having mastered and sublimated that essence, his gene seed no longer carried that curse. His descendants would be freed from the bloodthirst curse. In future, they could manifest an additional transformation, analogous to the golden transformation of Axis's Legion, a war state that makes their bodies larger and more powerful. Those whose bloodlines fused strongly with Sanguinius might even sprout wings and take to the sky. From now on, not only Axis's Golden Legion and his son's line would have transformation abilities, Sanguinius's Blood Angels would have true combat transformations too. "Truly wonderful. Congratulations," Axis said. "And that's not all. My gene seed offspring who already turned into vampires?" Sanguinius's eyes glinted. "I can perceive all who have become vampires. I can use my power to restore them. The vampire state will no longer reappear. The curse has become a blessing. Axis and Magnus exchanged looks and then nodded. Congratulations, St. Giles. Congratulations, brother. You've finally broken the curse, added Kratos and Kasha, offering warm blessings. Sanguinius smiled gratefully. Axis, Magnus, you don't think that's everything, do you? I still have a holy angel state. He looked at them both. Oh, does the holy angel form grant something different? Axis asked, curious. If the war angel was for combat, what other gift could the holy angel bring? Sanguinius descended, and with a thought, the blood-red flame receded. His wings returned to shining gold, his eyes to deep azure. The violent aura smoothed into the noble, sacred presence that made mortals instinctively kneel. The two forms switched perfectly. The perfect sublimation of warp essence, the unity of soul and body, lets you control your essence completely, Axis observed. The curse was a distortion of your incomplete essence. Now that you are complete, the curse has no foundation. Your gene seed now contains the information of your complete essence. Sanguinius opened his palm. A golden light gathered there, pure, warm, and unlike any warp energy or even the Emperor's sacred psychic power. It felt like life itself. Come feel this, brothers, Sanguinius said with pride. This is a power I can only use in my holy angel state. A new power I have mastered. It belongs to humanity. Magnus stared at the light, incredulous. Axis reached out and touched it and felt a warmth settle into his bones, sacred, bright, and utterly calming. The light brought peace and an almost physical sense of life. The name of this power is Holy Light, Sanguinius said. It is a miraculous energy born from me, a collision between the warp and the material universe, born of humanity's prayers for beauty and a hopeful future. So what can it do? Axis asked, already seeing the implications. It's warm and alive. What are its capabilities? It has many, Sanguinius replied. First, it heals. This sacred energy can directly treat wounds. I developed the method by combining it with the life energy in spirit tree fruits. If the subject is not dead, wounds can be repaired. It cannot yet regrow lost limbs from nothing, but if the severed limb remains, my energy can reconnect it. He had long coveted Axis's life-containing chi energy and had studied it intensely. With the aid of many spirit tree fruits, he had finally crafted this life-giving power. Incredible. There must be more, Axis said. This energy also soothes and calms hearts, Sanguinius continued. If a warp incursion happens and demons whisper their lies, Holy Light can block those whispers and protect the minds of mortals. Wait, do you mean it can restrain demons like Father's sacred psychic power? Magnus's voice tightened. Yes, Sanguinius smiled. It does more than restrain. It destroys. If you can summon a daemon, I will show you. Magnus and Kasha exchanged glances and nodded. Together they opened a small warp rift. A dozen daemons spilled out, wailing as they breathed the fresh air of real space. As they surged forward, Sanguinius casually sprinkled golden light across them. The daemons screamed in a sound that was part anguish, part uncreation. The sacred energy seared them, steam rising as their bodies were evaporated to dust. It was not only physical destruction, their souls were consumed. The holy light unmade them utterly. This is comparable to Father's sacred psychic power, Magnus said, astonished. For destroying daemons, it's even slightly better than Axis's key energy. Sanguinius had not strained himself. A mere gesture of holy light reduced the daemons to nothing, body and soul both gone. Axis watched, stunned. By mastering this, you join Father and me as one who can directly slay daemons, Magnus said, respect heavy in his voice. No, Sanguinius corrected gently. This power is not mine to hoard. I discovered and shaped it, but I can pass it on. I can transmit holy light to others, into you, Axis, into my gene seed offspring. Anyone who carries a compassionate heart, one that protects and hopes, can receive the holy light's response. Unlike Axis's chi energy, this holy light could be taught and shared. The thought of a power born from hope, able to heal, to steel hearts against the warp, and to slay daemons, spread among them like a dawn. Chapter 299, Holy Light, Paladin, Priest. As long as one is willing to learn, one can obtain this power. Of course, the prerequisite is consent. Sanguinius's words dropped like a stone into a calm lake, sending huge ripples through the hearts of Axis, Magnus, Kasha, and Kratos. Impart? Teach? Magnus's voice trembled with an unfamiliar shock. He stared at Sanguinius, a warm, potent gold radiance cradled in his palm. You mean It isn't just an energy, but a kind of knowledge that can be learned, or faith. The idea overturned everything Magnus thought he knew. Holy light had always seemed like a singular, overwhelming force, able to wound the very essence of the warp, rare in the physical universe and usually bound to an individual. There was the Emperor's divine psychic might, Axis's unique chi energy, chi that only Axis and a few special cultivators possessed. Psychers were numerous, yes, but they were born that way. Magnus did not yet know that Axis's newest spirit tree fruit variant could awaken ordinary people into psychers. Now Sanguinius implied something wilder, that if someone embraced a certain faith, they could access this power. That's right, Magnus, Sanguinius said. Holy light is knowledge that can be passed down. It is also, in a sense, a powerful faith-based force. He slowly closed his hand. Golden light flowed between his fingers as if it had weight. The power in it exceeded everyone's imagination. Holy light exists at the bottom layer of the physical universe, deep within every soul that yearns for light and holds good intent. If a mortal's will is firm and his heart pure, if he has compassion to feel others' suffering, guardianship to defend what he loves, and hope to believe in the future, then his soul can resonate with that cosmic source of light. My holy angel form acts like a signal tower, amplifying that resonance so they can perceive and be guided by it. Sanguinius left unsaid one more thing. As more people believe in and use holy light, its strength grows. He himself was the source. Without Axis's vital spirit tree fruit, without Axis's chi continually cleansing him, and without the ascension ritual that fully awakened his warped divine soul, this power would not have been born. A glint crossed Axis's eyes as he grasped the strategic significance. This was not merely Sanguinius's personal might. It was a blueprint for a decisive weapon against chaos, tailor-made for the Imperium. This power is extremely important, Axis said. How difficult is it to learn? What are the specific requirements? If his legion's golden transformation could be combined with holy light, it would be a perfect match. Unlike the warp, this sacred power could be distributed throughout the Space Marines. With one successful ascension, Sanguinius had delivered an unprecedented weapon to humanity. Axis's thoughts flew to the implications for the whole Imperium. Theoretically, Sanguinius replied, anyone willing to learn, who meets the conditions I described and embraces light and justice in their heart, can gain the recognition of holy light and use its power. I can also, if necessary, plant a seed of holy light within someone, allowing them to use it. He smiled with divine certainty. Ever since creating holy light, he had known that if the inner desire for protection, light, and justice existed, the energy could awaken without guidance. That meant holy light might one day answer any being who believed in it, not only humans. From its inception, it was altruistic. Believe in the light, and the light will respond. As its creator and source, Sanguinius could grant favored individuals a shortcut, skipping the stages and enabling immediate use. Axis, for example, a pure warrior, not given to compassion or priestly virtue. Sanguinius could simply plant a seed, and Axis could use the power. Then let me ask a hypothetical, Axis said. If a regular space marine learns this power but later falls, becomes a chaos space marine, would the holy light abandon him? That's right, Sanguinius said. Holy light is opposed to all corrupting powers. If someone is tainted by the chaos gods, holy light will leave them. Chaos cannot touch it. Axis stroked his chin. Besides healing and killing warp entities, can holy light be used offensively against non-warp beings? You guessed correctly, Axis. It can be wielded as a weapon. The exact techniques need research. I've only just mastered the energy myself, Sanguinius admitted. Magnus laughed, exhilarated. This is the ultimate insurance. A new power with no strict innate threshold. Healing, countering the warp, resisting corruption, and usable in combat. I will send people to learn this immediately. This must become part of the Legion. Yes, Sanguinius said. Send your sons, I will teach them. I can also plant holy light seeds in you. Axis leaned forward, already imagining the institutions that could grow from it. This needs a systematic plan. Skills, training methods, a cultivation system. Paladins and priests would naturally arise. 10,000 years from now, soldiers of the Adeptus Sororitas will call upon holy light and descend in golden radiance. Retribution paladins, protection paladins, holy paladins, specialists in combat, defense, and healing will be born. Every company will have priests, discipline priests, holy priests. Shadow priests? That's not for us. Sanguinius nodded. I will research it thoroughly. All who wield holy light can contribute. Your knowledge of gene seed will be invaluable. Ha, brother, I can't wait to try it. Plant the seed in me, Magnus said eagerly. Axis glanced at his brother. Sanguinius had gained holy light after his ascension. What would Magnus become if he completed his own ritual? A mage? A warlock? The thought amused Axis, but he didn't bother to comment. No problem, Sanguinius replied. Kratos, Kasha, Magnus, both of you come. I will plant the seed of holy light in all of you so you can use it. Thank you, St. Giles, Kratos said, bright-eyed. I would have wanted this when I faced Horus. What do we need to do? The others asked in unison. Relax your minds, Sanguinius instructed. Recall your most beautiful memories. Leave the rest to me. Axis, Magnus, Kasha, and Kratos nodded. They sat cross-legged and quieted themselves, reaching inward for the warmest, strongest, most hopeful and protective moments in their hearts, ready to receive whatever Sanguinius would give. Chapter 300, Holy Light Seed, Pope of the State, Religion. Magnus's thoughts drifted through time, back to the distant past, to Prospero's library, where a young Magnus had been submerged in a sea of knowledge, ecstatic at unraveling cosmic mysteries and mastering one psychic discipline after another. That pure hunger for truth and the sense of mission to contribute wisdom to humanity's future had been a cornerstone of his power, the purest, most beautiful light in his heart. Kasha's memories were softer. Her parents' companionship in childhood, meeting Axis, the secret delight at wanting to surprise Axis when she was pregnant, and the joy of watching her son, Kratos, grow. Kratos' recollections were more straightforward. The thrill of finally mastering the Super Saiyan 2 Golden Great Ape form after brutal training under his father's guidance. Proof of his father's approval. There was the Emperor's blessing and the joy of witnessing his mother's awakening. His strongest core, though, was his will to fight for humanity and burn for his beliefs on the battlefield. And Axis? What memories meant most to a Saiyan but combat itself, an endless litany of fights, sparring with Huang Lao Han, battling Gene Seed Primarchs, clashing with Khorne and Slanesh, and the youthful days at the Wolf King's side. Now Sanguinius suffused their minds with holy light. He radiated the sacred power through his entire being, guiding the thoughts of the four, magnifying the beautiful, luminous parts of their hearts. He sensed different, equally potent currents of holy light emerging from each of them. Smiling with the gravity of the sacred, he raised his hands. Warm, pure golden radiance gathered in his palms, but this time it was softer, restrained, cradling a seed of holy light. With a subtle motion, he released 4 golden orbs, each fist-sized and like condensed starlight, and sent them drifting toward Axis, Magnus, Kasha, and Kratos. When the orbs touched, there was no explosion or jolt, only a wondrous integration. Golden light bloomed within them. Axis felt the holy light seed take root in his mind. A divine power rose within him, not ki, but something purer, brighter, with intensely positive effects. It healed with a potency that outmatched his own life ki. While his life ki required touch, holy light could bestow healing across vast distances. The others experienced the same influx. Magnus, Kasha, and Kratos each took hold of that power. They opened their eyes almost at once, a golden sheen playing across all 4 faces. How do you feel? Sanguinius asked, part anticipation, part concern. Incredible. Magnus was first, his voice ragged with excitement. My psychic powers, never so stable and clear. It's like someone polished a dust-covered gem. And this holy light, it naturally repels the filth of the warp. It strengthens my resistance. For Magnus, holy light was above all an excellent shield against warp energy and spatial erosion. Its healing and offensive aspects were secondary to its value as a warp resistor. Warm and strong, like a mother's gentlest embrace, but with the strength to protect, Kasha said, eyes soft. It complements parts of my psychic work perfectly. Sanguinius, thank you. Kasha felt the healing and protective properties most keenly. She could use them to support and safeguard her son and husband. Both Axis and Kratos were offensively oriented. She would be their support. Power. I feel power surging through me. My body feels stronger. This power blends with my transformation. Kratos pumped his fists excitedly, golden motes dancing across his frame. His Super Saiyan form amplified the Holy Light's force. What he sensed most was its offensive potential. Axis, too, perceived both offense and defense in the Holy Light. It would better protect him and resist warp corrosion. It resisted warp energy and could turn back the greater demons of chaos. I'm merely giving you this power. How you use and develop it is up to you. I believe you will refine it far beyond what I can teach, Sanguinius said. I understand, Sanguinius, Axis replied. There's no need to thank me. I want to return to my gene seed offspring quickly and share this power with them. If you send people, I'll teach them the Holy Light. If some cannot learn it, I will plant the seed in them, Sanguinius offered. We can do that in time, Axis said, pausing. There's something else I want to propose regarding this divine power. Axis? Sanguinius inclined his head. Before the Emperor fell into slumber, he entrusted me with a special mission, Axis began. Although your memories are sealed, one thing remains critical. We must gather powerful faith for the Emperor. We must establish a state religion centered on the Emperor. You don't need to ask why. Axis's voice was steady. The plan to found a national religion was more pressing to him than anything else, even more urgent than the matter of the Raidan. In the original timeline, a state religion grew only after the gene seed Primarchs had left the Empire, many maimed, dead, asleep, or in seclusion. In that vacuum, suffering and devotion toward the Emperor had given rise to a cult. Some pious souls discovered Lorgar's Lectitio Divinitatis and treated it as the Emperor's revelation. From that, the imperial cult took root and would be formalized only centuries later, not becoming an official state religion until the 36th millennium. But under the current circumstances, with the Primarchs still present, the religion would never naturally take hold. Axis had to force the issue. The Emperor, sustained on the Golden Throne and fighting the Dark King and the darkness within, needed the positive cumulative force of humanity's hope and worship. Without it, the constant sacrifice of psychers would poison his spirit. If Axis did nothing, the Emperor could never become the God Emperor of the future. Axis had once considered another path, centering faith on himself. That plan carried a grave risk. Humanity's worship might birth something else in the warp, a separate war god named Axis that would be nothing like him. He discussed the idea with the Eldari life goddess and laughing god, and ultimately abandoned it in favor of the Fruit of God plan. I can't tell you all the details, Sanguinius, but Axis is right. The Father truly needs humanity's faith, Magnus said, nodding in agreement. Seeing Magnus assent, Sanguinius fell silent. Only 3 had ever known this secret truth. 2 had just confirmed it. There was no need to consult Primarch Rogel or Prime Macardo, as it had been misremembered. The implication was clear. What do you want me to do? Sanguinius asked. You will propose the establishment of this state religion, Axis replied. You will be its leader and shape the doctrine of faith around the Emperor. Sanguinius stared, incredulous. What? Me, the Pope? Are you joking, Axis? This is Lorgar's work. That idiot's the sort of man who should lead this. Sanguinius's discomfort was obvious. He had always loathed being called a god. He had championed the imperial truth that there were no gods. Even if they all now knew that claim to be false, the Empire's citizens still believed in it. The task of founding a religion and composing its doctrine felt, to him, like the sort of blind devotion Lorgar would have embraced. What's Lorgar's status now? He hasn't been executed, has he? Axis asked. Not yet, Sanguinius replied. After we returned to Holy Terra, we imprisoned him. We've been too caught up in the Horus heresy to finish anything else. Good. Let him write the doctrine for the state religion, Axis said quietly. Sanguinius's shock was immediate. What?